All right, hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome to Comic Book Radio. I'm your host Peter Cimetti, and this is episode 136. Thank you for being here. Tonight my guest is Adam Post. We're going to be talking about problems in the comic industry, causes, effects, and solutions. The latter part, not many people usually talk about. So we're going to be talking about some of that. But you got to address the issues, the problems, if you're going to come up with some solutions, correct? All right. Now, before we bring on Adam, I want to say hello to those of you in the chat. We got Leg Kick here. What's up, Leg Kick? Grape Nuka-Cola, what's up? We got Matt Cisco in the house. How's it going? We got Lobo Vicious here. We got Dr. Mask. What's up, Doc? I saw your almost 10-minute long unboxing video today. I told you. And thank you very much. You got a lot of stuff, my friend, and so I managed to put as much of that in the box as I possibly could. Big box, and I'm glad you're enjoying that hoodie. That's a. You can see it for yourself. I'm telling you, it's. When I look at those hoodies that we just made, I don't know how the heck they did it. I look at it and I'm like, these things come out even better looking than the comics, and they're on fabric. It goes right over my head. I can't understand it, but they're fantastic. So I hope you're enjoying it. We got Mighty Joe in the house. What's up, Mighty Joe? Ben is here, too. How's it going, Ben? We also got God and Monsters with J.D. Gunter. What's up, buddy? Hope you're doing good. Levi Skeen is in the house. How's it going? Doc says, the Alterna hoodies, they have, metal tips at the end of the little string there. I noticed that, too. I thought that was kind of cool. Like I said, quality stuff. We also have Gen X here. What's up, Gen X? Hope you're doing well. Beam Pad in the house, too. How's it going, Beam Pad? Robert Doan in the house. What's up? Or what's up? The Green Lasers here. How's it going? We also got Wizard Sleeves. What's up, Wizard Sleeves? Gray Wolf is in the house, too. How's it going, Gray Wolf? Doc says there were so many things. You missed things when you unbox. Look at that, right? Improby, what's up? Says, haven't seen a live Adam Post appearance in a long while. Good choice. Yeah, interesting. Adam's got a pretty active channel, right? Does he not do live streams anymore? I guess I'll ask him. But I'm honored then that he's here tonight. So speaking of, let's bring him on. The man of the hour, Mr. Adam Post. What's up, Adam?
Hey, how you doing? This is Adam Post.
Look at that. The one and only live and
Good to
in
see you,
full
man.
color.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here, and it's great to see the chat. And I see a couple people mention me in the chat. I appreciate you guys, and thanks for tuning in to us.
Yeah, I'm glad you're here. I didn't know that you weren't really doing live streams and stuff anymore.
Yeah, I jump on occasionally. I've been like on RT Bear's channel, I think a couple times. A couple months ago I was on Literature Devil. I haven't been really seeking it out, and on my channel I haven't been live streaming, but I have been publishing videos, and I usually publish 2 videos per day.
Wow.
So I've been focusing a lot on build the channel, build a platform. I do comics. I do a series I call Woke Shutdown, where woke things failing, such as like today I did one talking about how Harvard's applications were down 17%, their advanced applications. That was before Claudine Gay, the president's testimony that she got nailed for on anti-Semitism. So, and why? Because in October, people were like terrified that they're getting hunted in the streets, like trying to go to college. And also some people are not getting their applications looked at now, and not getting job opportunities because they are going to Harvard. Some big corporate guys are not doing it, but also a variety of things. Like, so when you see a woke fail, I'm going to do a video about that.
So it would be like woke asleep.
Woke Asleep. Actually, I took wokeshutdown.com. It goes direct to my channel. I've done like 60 of those videos. There's, thank God, a lot of pushback on the diversity, equity, and inclusion stuff.
Interesting.
Which is a big part of what's killing our comics and killing our pop culture, obviously. And a lot on Disney.
Oh, yeah.
Those dirty
yeah.
devils.
All right, so there's a lot of problems. Specifically, we'll focus on comics tonight, and of course, as I'm well aware, it's difficult to just focus on the problems with comics because there's so many problems in comics that are also happening everywhere else, and there's problems with everything else that are also affecting comics. But we'll try our best to focus on comics.
There's a lot to talk about with.
Yeah, the causes, effects, and solutions. Anything, of course, that we offer up as a solution. Maybe it might work, maybe it wouldn't, but it's still, I want to put that stuff out there, get the wheels turning in the minds of people who may be watching this now or later on.
There's a lot of ways that we can solve any problems that we see with comics. But the first thing that I don't see men like me, like I'm 53 years old now, I'm not a baby, I'm not a grandpa yet, but the first thing is it's our responsibility. I mean, Pete, you have a love of comics. You know, I have a love of comics. But one of the reasons why I always kind of like follow you around and make cutesy comments on posts of yours and try to be supportive of you is because of the heart that you have for it. And, it's a like a little light that is brighter and brighter for everyone if there are people that actually do care and do their best work and do good things for other people in the business. But we're the adults now. You know, there are other people that are crowdfunding and doing very well, and they're doing their part by crowdfunding. But if the industry is messed up, yes, there are the bad people out there. Yes, there are the cancel pigs, as Mark Millar coined. But it's us who make the comics. We're the adults. We're the managers. And we need to make the good ones. And then we need to figure out how to get them distributed. And lastly, back in the day, I mean, like to sound that old, but in the early 1990s when we were making comics, we were competing with people. So it was like our comics and how good they are versus their comics and how good they are. And if Marvel or DC all of a sudden decided, you know what, we're going to make terrible comics that our customers really don't want, we would say, oh, okay, well, we'll just make the good ones. And then, like, that is what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to make the good ones. We're supposed to focus on what people want, and we can be selfish, and we can look at, like, what works for us. I know you're not. But at the same time, we have to look at what works for the industry. So number one for me is it's our responsibility, and thankfully, it's well within our power. I have published more than 1,000 comics. I haven't published a lot in the last couple of years, but my plans are to do more soon. You've published many comics. So
Adam,
we have the capability.
I don't want to interrupt you for a second. I'm going to have to. Can you get like maybe 3 or 4 inches away from the mic or push it from you a little bit? It's popping.
Yes.
The plosives are going crazy.
All right. I may have.
But I could still hear you perfectly fine.
Much gain on my mic, which is good for.
I apologize.
Videos? How about now? Am I cool?
No, yeah, you sound great. You don't have to adjust any of the gain or anything. You have to take a little bit of a
I won't touch nothing. Hands
mic.
up.
I could still hear you perfectly fine.
Yes, and that's my point.
Are you frozen? Okay.
And
right.
Frozen? No. We're good?
No, for a second you were. You're fine.
All right. The light is green. Yeah, hopefully I do not freeze. If I freeze, you tell me.
But yeah, I mean, well, okay, I've seen this conversation going around a lot, and I've seen a lot of the solutions being overly simplified, where people are like, well, if they made really good stories, if they made really good comics, everything would be fixed. To me, there's 2 problems with that solution. One, people are being directed to make these kinds of comics, and the people that are making these kinds of comics think that they're good comics. And then 2, the fact that right now the system within comics is so utterly broken that you could have the greatest comics on earth being made right now. You could have the absolute greatest. Think of whatever you define as a great comic, better than that. And the limit, the reach in which that comic could get out there is so small now compared to what it was 30, 40 years ago, that unless you get the cooperation of the corporation, or if it's not a corporate comic and it's an indie comic, the cooperation of the media, you're not really going to go much further than the word of mouth of the customer, which is great and important. And there's a lot of comics that have done very well on the back of that. But it's not to the same degree, the same effect in which it could be and has been. So the system has so many facets of it that need to have people completely replaced, or they have to start doing a better job. And them doing a better job I don't think that's going to happen. So it would have to be people being replaced. But that initiative that is coming from the top,
Marvel,
it's just not going to be there.
Marvel and DC, it's dumpster fire. There's no way to say, well, I want to write them an email and they're going to do something different with their comic. If there's more done, like beating up at the companies, embarrassing the companies, more failure at the companies, eventually they may change to formats that are better. They may take an action to do something better. One of the things Mark Millar discussed with 4 retailers recently was the lack of long runs where there just aren't ongoing series. And, they'll launch a series, they'll run it for 6 issues or 10 issues, cancel it, and then relaunch it to get a new number 1 out, and they'll sell more of the number 1 than they might have sold of issue number 11, but then they sell less.
That's a publisher talent retail distribution problem. That's a 4-pronged problem. So if you were to fix the publisher and fix the creator, and they're putting out great content and they want to do an ongoing, the retail situation is so risk averse that they're not going to order. I've seen it with my own eyes of orders coming in at 4,000 on one. One didn't even land yet, and they're placing the orders for 2 because of the way the system is built. And now we didn't have a month to month. We had every 2 months. So we had the issues out within a week or 2 of when the orders were going to be due. But anytime we had missed that, or anytime even when it would happen, sometimes it would happen and we would see the orders and I'm thinking like, great, number 1 made a splash. So the issues for number 2 should be great. And they'd be 60%, 50% of what was ordered on 1, and so on and so forth until it leveled out, usually around 30% or so of what was ordered at 1. And then at that point, you're talking about cancellation numbers. So, and then the distribution system isn't expanding their footprint, so it puts all the pressure to order on the small business retailer.
It's the problem with the comic book store model, that and what Pete's describing, is that they're buying these comics on a non-returnable basis. They buy King Cryptid number 1. They buy 50,000 copies.
Oh, I wish.
Wouldn't that be? I just figured I'd pick a big number. You deserve it, Pete. They buy 50,000 copies. But then by the time you're offering King Cryptid number 2, even if you've already shipped King Cryptid number 1, and you waited 3 months to offer King Cryptid number 2, and it came in, it's sold out, they won't buy 100%. Even if number 1 sold out and there's demand for it, they won't
even buy 50%.
Yeah, they won't buy, because yes, that is how the model works. There's ways of sort of working around that. I mean, you published for several years focusing on selling to direct market stores.
Well, yeah, which is then cue the variant covers, cue the gimmicks, cue the incentivization programs, all of that stuff to falsify and boost numbers. And then the system kind of feeds itself. That's why it's like a sea change has to happen. Everybody has to wake up and realize like that is a system that everyone has been taking part in that is breaking the system at every level.
You know what's funny? Pete is and I apologize for interrupting, but I got wired me this way.
Again, 3 or 4 inches. Yeah, you're getting too close. You don't need to be close. It's picking you up perfectly fine from where it's
This mic was a little fancy that I bought for the videos, and I'm so shocked that it actually works. that I break
Yeah.
it. So,
No, it's
all right,
yeah,
thanks, man.
it's picking you up good.
Pete is getting me back in the game.
There you
Lobo
go.
Vicious, by the way, thank you for your positive comments about Adam Post. I do appreciate you. I appreciate everybody. And Wizard Sleeves was mentioning how we need to go back to what Jack Kirby was doing. That is exactly what I've been telling people over the last couple of months. And that is exactly what I've been working on in terms of the aesthetic of what I want my future projects to look like and feel like. Not exactly Jack Kirby, but high action, lots of story, dynamic, etc. But and that takes it to the point of the first constraint is make the things that people want. And if they tell you they want it, make more of that. If they tell you they don't want it, stop making that. Which is why as a publisher, one of the books that I did crowdfunding last, The Mermaids, didn't do as well as College of the Dead. And that was a book that the numbers weren't there. And like, all right, as a publisher, and you've done this a million times, Pete, it's not a rejection of Adam Post. It's just, it didn't click. Now, that was the only reason I published that was because I spent really 10 years working on it from a blank piece of paper to wouldn't it be cool to do Game of Thrones with mermaids, and then started writing it, developing it, working with talent, got the book finished, etc. And then eventually I've been spending years in the crowdfunding community. People are interested in what I want to do next. Everybody's doing what they want to do. I want this to see print. Also because when I was a kid, I was 20 or whatever, you do whatever to pay the bills and make money when you're publishing. I did it again.
When you were a young man, it's always weird to me to hear someone say a 20-year-old is a kid.
When I was
so I'm just when you wore a younger man's clothes, according to Billy Joel,
more sinuous at the end of 20. It was about paying the bills and taking care of the studio. But as I'm older now, I think about things like, 10 years ago, I told the talent that helped me do this book that it would be in print. And yes, I paid them, but I know how it feels to do work and have it never see print. So I'm like, I gotta put it out. But to get back to what saves comics? The first thing is, come on, we have to make things that people like, which I know it's our own self-expression, but you do commercial things. If no one liked King Cryptid, you wouldn't be doing King Cryptid.
I'd try my darndest till I couldn't do King Cryptid. So for me, and I think for everybody that's trying to tell a genuine story, that it's not chasing a trend, it's not loaded with buzzwords or whatever the hot topic of the day is, or they're not being directed by some company that is motivated by ESG scores. I think it really starts with the idea, and you get motivated by that idea and the passion to tell that story, and then you start fleshing it out and you put it together, you get it out there, and you see how people respond to it. And if they hopefully respond to something that you're having fun making, perfect. But sometimes it doesn't happen. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't happen. I've been blessed, I've been lucky so far, people are responding to King Cryptid. But I've had a lot of books. If anything, I would say the vast majority of books that I've published at Alterna, where I kept forcing, not the audience to like it, but kept forcing the ability of myself to try to have this book around longer than it should have been. A lot of books that maybe they should have been canceled at issue 3 and they went to issue 6. Books that should have been, a year here and they were here for 4 or 5. So that kind of a thing. And that's definitely happened. And that's happened to, I think, a lot of publishers. But again, like what you're talking about in terms of getting stuff out there and listening to the audience. Now more than ever, I think it's so easy to listen to the audience.
It's so easy. And Pete, people
but I think we're not seeing that happen for a reason.
No, a lot of, it comes at the point where you have the woke people who are ruining comics and have been ruining comics that want to just push their agenda at the same time as eclipsing and destroying really what are the classic superheroes. They want them gone.
Yeah, but Yeah.
Disney literally has a policy to decenter whiteness. I wish I didn't know that, but I do.
Now you're hitting closer to the bullseye, because I think to say the people on the ground level that are making the books and are pushing this and that, whatever, they're the useful idiots. They're the people that are out there. They're being put into positions to fail, essentially. And in a lot of these cases, it's being directed by corporate. These people aren't strong enough in terms of their pull or whatever it is to essentially go in there and decide, you know what, we're going to do this to the character, and that's how that's going to be. These companies that have put billions of dollars of investment into these characters, and they're going to just say, yeah, sure, come in there and totally destroy the thing we just spent a lot of money on. That sounds great. So they're being motivated, of course, by ESG, DEI funding, etc., which should be called DIE funding, but that's a whole other story, because
True.
that is the purpose. Because I think purposefully what is going on is that we have, and this gets into like a little bit of a conspiracy kind of thing, but at the same time,
None of what you're saying is bad or a conspiracy or off, and I can cite stuff for you.
well, what I'm about to say is a theory that I have.
Okay.
I think what's happening is purposeful, because I think investment companies that are embroiled in these mega conglomerate companies, huge companies, they need these companies brought to heel. They need these companies to become dependent. They need these companies, hopefully, to get so low and do so bad that they can't possibly pay the debt, and they have to sell the company. And the ownership then would go to the investment firm. So you're talking about like a
The
BlackRock, a
creditors, you're saying,
Vanguard,
the guys who
etc.
lend the money.
Yeah, big international banks, that kind of a thing. And through that, you get the political mouthpieces that you really want, and you can have propagandized media in a full and complete way. So, but you have to do that. You have to really do every single thing, because otherwise it would be like, this doesn't sell. Let's make something that sells. So let's stop making the thing that doesn't sell. Let's not castigate the customers. Let's not destroy the things we put lots of money into. Let's not do all the things that don't make any sense. Instead, we're constantly seeing tons of things that don't make any sense, and they keep doing it over and over and over again. And they're doing it because this is becoming the only way they can get funding. And because of that, they get deeper and deeper and deeper in the hole. And as they get deeper in that hole, it's becoming easier and easier for them to be controlled, manipulated, and then eventually, if they don't course correct and realize that, hey, it's too late, you can't keep doing this, then eventually that company can crumble, and you basically get what has been happening for a long time anyway, but on a smaller level. You get like vulture funds and that kind of a thing. It's the same kind of thing that happens, but this is a much larger scale to bring down much bigger companies. And this has been a thing that's been going on for decades and decades, ever since corporations were invented. Especially ever since they became huge. And once you get these transnational corporations involved, they don't need to follow a constitution. They don't need to follow the laws of a country. They are multinational. If anything, a lot of them are global. So what kind of laws do they really follow? So they're at the heel of whatever wants them to do what they want them to do, which usually tends to be the WEF at this point. So there's all
World
kinds
Economic
of crazy...
Foundation.
Yeah, the World Economic Forum, with Klaus Schwab and everything
World Economic
else.
Forum, excuse me, yes.
So there's a lot of things at play that are doing this. And everyone goes, well, it's movies, it's music, it's TV, it's comics, it's whatever it is. And that's part of it too, to go, what do they care about that? They care a lot about it. And anybody who's within comics or anything that has to do with storytelling should know the power of storytelling, should know and understand. You can control that, you can control culture, you can control people. You control
as
that.
human beings, before we had a written language, we used stories in tribal settings to pass information to each other as humans. Like, humans did that. Stories are incredibly persuasive because they're persuasive. They're designed to be persuasive.
It
if it's
taps
not
right
persuasive,
into the human experience.
1,000,000%. So stories are incredibly important, and it's funny to see. I was listening to some Marvel history today, one of the recent books on Marvel's history, where because Todd McFarlane injured his ankle, he couldn't be recruited for professional baseball, so he decided to go ahead and go into comics, which he also did very passionately, but affected and dramatically changed the industry. So when we look, even Pete, at like, well, what could Pete Samedi do to fix this? What could Adam Post or anyone else, Mark Millar, whomever, do to, quote, fix this? We could fix it. Any one person could fix or break probably just about anything if they're completely focused and if they're effective. I'm with you on your conspiracy theory in that direction of trying to get the corporate assets and seize corporate assets, or just trying to push World Economic Forum. It's net, it's the same thing.
Yeah, I think because at play, what's happening is so many people are focused on fixing the system that is purposefully being broken and can't be fixed. It doesn't matter what you do within this system that is being posed. It's not going to be fixed. So you have to build a separate system. You have to show a different path. And that's what I think so many people are currently doing. And that's where I think it's great and where it needs to continue to build, which is the independent, the decentralization of that, getting away from the idea that there is only a traditional path in comics, because that traditional path, we look towards history to say that's how it was done. But if you look at history and you see what it's like now, you look at the history of comics, you look at the business, the distribution, the publishers, etc., the content, the creators, the mindset. It's a very different mindset than what's today. That mindset that made it successful, that everyone loves, that made these things into multi-billion-dollar properties currently, is no longer there and will never be there again. It's a different thing. And I think if people, as soon as they understand
there is no traditional path.
There is none anymore. Exactly.
Even
and instead,
whether
this other path being built,
not
I
for
think,
comics,
is the way.
Yeah, there's direct to consumer. It's funny, and I've thought about this a couple of times, but having been around comics as a publisher when I was a teenager in the 1980s, I published G.I. Jackrabbits in 1986, which I think was 2 years after the first Ninja Turtle comic came out. That's how it was back then. But I was a teenager. I was relatively young. And that was crowdfunding. It was low-tech crowdfunding. It was as direct to consumer as you could possibly make it. And sales to comic shops on a non-returnable basis today is also crowdfunding, because we get pre-orders that fans and who read Diamond Previews or whatever the publication is now, and shops, and they go individually and collect pre-orders, and then the shop sometimes buys extra to have some on a shelf, sometimes not. But those orders are collected from sources of thousands of people, and then you get whatever your pre-order is on a non-returnable basis. That's crowdfunding. It's just, that was through wholesale crowdfunding, through shops. And in the early 90s, when I first started out, we actually, with a very limited discount, could get prepaid on the purchase order. So when a distributor ordered, we might give them a 3% discount off of the invoice to get paid for a $10,000 wholesale order. They don't do that no more. But through crowdfunding, you can get prepaid. But I think that to get to the solutions for this it's very important that if you're going to pre-sell something, people know what it is, whether it's a store or it's a consumer, and that you build as much of your direct-to-consumer relationship as possible, which is crowdfunding, which is social media, which is YouTube. And then you do what Brian Pulido does so effectively. And I know you sort of do this as well. I don't completely understand everything you're doing now.
Yes. So many people are doing this path, and it's completely off of the strength of being able to not just get a good product out there, because sometimes you don't know, is it going to be a good product? Am I going to get a bait and switch here? Does it look good? And then it's not going to be good. But it's based off of the trust and faith of the customer, direct to the customer. And they are not necessarily investing in a traditional sense into helping you create it, but they truly are. They're backing you. They're making what you want to do possible based on who you are, what you're doing, what it looks like, How confident they feel in you is going to show based on what your backing will be. And of course, there's other factors too, like getting out there, the platform you have, the audience you have built up beforehand, and those things are very important. But the thing that I think people really have to understand is before crowdfunding like this came along, a traditional path for many people would have been to either put their money directly from what they were doing with a side job or a full-time job or whatever they had, or to take out a loan in a traditional way. And if you were a bigger publisher, you would have had to be constantly doing debt financing, essentially. So that's why there's a lot of things going on in the world right now where they're taking various things into consideration before they give you, like if you were to approach a bank for a loan to make a comic book or to open a store or to do whatever, anything that's the tried and true traditional path. It's a very different world now than it was then. So being able to actually get something to people and they can look at it and they can go, yeah, you know, this looks cool, you know, $20, $50, whatever, you know, I'll go in on it. And, you know, I enjoy what this looks like, or if you know the creator already and you know what they're capable of, there's more confidence there and you can build on that. So it's a very different system as far as that goes, as far as what the traditional system would be pushed. And that's where I think the strength in this really lies, is because it truly is tapping into the power of people.
Well, when you could go direct to consumer. I mean, Pete,
you become selling, dependent on some other entity.
You're selling the chair. You're selling King Cryptid, and then the Crusaders, the guys with the cereal. Whatever book that you're selling,
yeah, we don't do that anymore.
You tell distributors that you're publishing something.
Yeah.
They tell retailers. The numbers come back. You wait, and you wait, and you wait, and you hope, and perhaps you pray, like me, and we're waiting for that non-returnable purchase order to come in, saying, oh my God, I hope it's at least this much. If it's not this much, maybe I could do this or do that and kind of get the number up, whatever it is. We used to wait. Well, we used to wait by the fax machine, but you'd get emails or however they give you the purchase order. That was how much money you were going to get, and that is it. First of all, it was a miracle that Diamond actually did pay, and I know they messed with you for a couple of months during the pandemic.
Well, we're not with Diamond anymore, but yeah.
But the fact that these distributors actually paid for decades kept the business alive. And there were some business distributors that went out, we got burned on this or that, but for the most part, you could count on that money to come in. But with crowdfunding, direct to consumer, if we need to sell more books because we didn't hit our number, we can get on a live stream. We can hit up a few other influencers who have YouTube platforms and say, can I get on? I got to promote my thing. I got to hit my number. And like, you can hustle as much as you have to hustle to get that number up.
Oh yeah. But way better avenues to help promote and market.
It's life or death. I mean, if we didn't have
this was a whole different system.
Yeah. If we didn't have this, if we didn't have the opportunity to crowdfund, direct to consumer, comics would not be. But the other aspect of this is the same reason why Marvel does 10 covers when they release a new comic. It's about also being able to get more money from every individual customer in a scalable way. So you're offering King Cryptid #1. You've got very reasonable and low retail prices on those books. You offer that through comic stores, and someone sees it and they're like, damn, that guy with the hat, the glasses, I love Pete Samedi. How do I support this guy? He's got this comic coming out. All right, I'm going to buy one. Maybe I'll even buy two. Now you're getting $6 retail or something from that guy. Alternatively, you're crowdfunding. So if you're crowdfunding direct to consumer, that revenue per customer, it could be $100 or more. And of course, you keep all of it and it's not a discount.
Yeah, because that's the other part is you go through distribution, you go through retail. Of course, you have to, give a discount. Generally, the retailer gets 40 to 50%. The distributor's getting like 15 to 20%, depending on what terms you have. Our terms with Diamond at the time, for 12 years, were 62%. We did 60% and then 2% to ship to their reship center instead of shipping to the various other
rather than drop shipping.
distribution. Yeah.
They took 2 points of retail for that. How did they estimate that
Exactly.
retail was going to equate to that?
Yeah.
Whatever,
So
Whatever, Steve.
So that's what we had done. But in exchange for that 62%, in exchange for the retailer getting a 40 to 45%,
which meant that you
discount,
got, when they take 62%, that means you got back 38% of cover price.
Of cover price. So if it was, we'll make it easy. If it was $1, then we made 38 cents on a sale.
Yep.
Right. So if it was $2, we made was 76 cents a book, and so on and so forth. So you can see where it's like, wow, that sounds kind of bad. And in a way,
well, you also had some of the lowest. You've still had some of the most affordable and lowest cover prices too.
Even now, yeah, we've got a $225 price and we go direct. And depending on how things shake out, maybe we have to go to $250 or higher in the next year or two. But the thing is that it's great in terms of being able to do that system with distribution if the sales numbers are there. So if distribution is getting me 10,000 sales, I look at that and I go, okay, well, if we're surrendering 62%, then that's on my own selling 3,800 copies. So if I can sell 3,800 copies on my own, then maybe distribution isn't good. But if I can only sell like 1,000 copies on my own, then that's pretty good. And then also economy of scale, your print cost goes down because you're printing so many more. But the thing with distribution,
you batch print your books,
right? So we batch print them. But the thing with distribution, when it got really bad,
for anybody who's listening, I apologize to interrupt you. I love to explain things. So batch printing is, Pete is brilliant, and many people don't realize this as publishers. They'll just send their individual books in to get printed at the printer. I occasionally did batch printing, but not all the time. But Pete will say, all right, I've got 7 books to print. He'll print them all at once. And because you're printing 7 at a time, particularly the way Pete's doing it, newsprint, it's much more affordable than printing 7 of them individually. Because of the way they set up the press and the way they allocate costs.
Exactly. So then our total costs, because we're printing so many more pages, it goes down, and then the only cost that we worry about inflating those costs would be the versions that are getting printed. So the 7 versions. But instead of doing it one at a time, and maybe it'd be double the cost per unit, sending it, all together.
Significantly affordable.
Yeah, it makes it way more affordable. And that's what the bigger publishers are doing too, so it makes the books cost a lot less. But the thing with that is, when I was realizing we're going through distribution and we're selling like 500 to 600 copies.
Wow.
That's
on like a $2
horrible.
retail.
Yeah, that's horrible. So towards the end of 2019, there were several books that were doing that, and we were starting to make more money selling direct than we were selling through distribution. The thing with everything right now, with distributors, and after this, we'll go a little bit more precise in terms of the problems and then the solutions. But the thing right now that I'm seeing a lot with retailers is that they really, if they are struggling to sell big 2 books, if any of them are, some of them probably aren't, some of them probably are, but the ones that are really need to understand they have to start approaching alternatives. They have to start ordering direct from publishers. They have to start ordering direct from indie creators. They have to start utilizing, hopefully, any business acumen that they have in terms of looking at a book, looking at some preview pages, and going, that looks like people would be interested, or that creator is on it, and that should. And there's a lot of retailers out there that are just like, no, if it's not in Diamond, or if it's not here, or whatever, if I gotta go somewhere else to get it, I'm not doing it. And I know that firsthand, because we offered and still do offer a bigger discount direct. And even at a time, we were offering free shipping on orders of like $25 or something for a retailer, which was like nothing to get. Order like 3 or 4 copies of the latest like 6 or 7 that came out, and you hit $25. And I can't tell you how many of them were like, nah, I don't want to do that. Or some of them that would order, and then they would order, and I'm like, your shipping right now is negating your discount. So you're not making any money. If you ordered like 8 more copies, you'd get free shipping. Nah, I'm just going to leave it at that. And I'm like, are you sure? Because this book would go really well, and you could, and no, we're just gonna order that. And I'm like, okay, like you're not making any money
But you
because
know
your
what?
shipping is negating the discount.
Just from my 2 cents on that conversation, please ask that person, can I ask you why? And just see if they blow you off, then you have to leave it alone. But sometimes in sales, you get to see where people's minds are at.
Yeah, they go. That's just what the customers want is these, and I'm like, but what about the other customers that come
Well,
into
if you get
the
them
store?
for free and you put them on your shelf, maybe we'll have new customers. I mean, it's the only kind of thing you could say, right? I mean, this is not, but the point is, you're absolutely right that people are set in their minds of where they're at. The retailers tolerate and sometimes make some money with independence, but it's not like they can count on Pete Cimetti and Adam Post to pay their rent.
Exactly. Which is why it's not a complete abandonment of product, but it's a diversification.
But what I
It's
will tell you
getting
is
more stuff in the store and
I do
growing
have-
on that level.
I do have some experience in selling my back issues directly to stores. And we did that in the space of, this is going back a couple of years, but we sold a lot of books, and what we did was we had overruns. This is for almost all Triumphant Comics, our science fiction comics universe, Chromium Man and such. And what we did was, I was like, all right, I'm going to hire a couple of telemarketers. We're going to call shops, and we're going to give them what we offered, a super value pack, which was 80% off of retail for a collection of back issues. So at 80% off of retail, they were getting, they'd spend $100 with us, and they get $500 worth of value, worth of books they can sell. And a lot of retailers said no, and some retailers said yes. And then we would have like a value pack, a super value pack. We had like 3 different price points. We actually, this is dated. This is how I will say, this does go back to 1994. It wasn't last week, but we did sell like $40,000 worth of books over the course of 6 weeks. And then we still closed the company. But in any case, we had so much more back issues. But because the stores, what has to happen with a store is they need to be able to see how they can make money. And the stores, the retailers do love comics, but they do need to see how they can be protected and how they can make money. And one of the things that in Mark Millar's interview, as well as in his interview, op-ed in online, Coliseum of Comics owner, who owns like 7 shops, 10 shops, I think he said actually, he said he wanted publishers to respect the fact that it costs a lot more for him to put a book on a shelf, one extra book, than it costs them to put on a shelf. Talking about marginal cost. You know this about printing. So if you print 1,000 versus 1,001, that extra one, even on a $2 retail, for a store, costs them at least $1 on a $2 retail to take a risk to try to make $2, even if they're giving no discount to the consumers. As a publisher, it might cost us 15 or 20 cents, I don't know what the costs are these days, to create that $2 opportunity for that retailer. So what Phil was saying was, listen, you and your $5 retail books, your $6 retail books, give us a minimum number you need us to buy, but give us everything else after that at 60 cents a unit so that I can get you your number that you need to hit. I'll hit you at your number you need to hit, but give me an opportunity to buy more books cheaply so that I have margin on those extra books. So number one, I can't get killed. And number two, and the biggest problem is they keep getting killed. These guys are broke. They can't afford to get killed.
I get what he's saying, but he's not going to have a publisher to put any books on his shelves within 3 to 4 years with that model. He's talking about essentially then big publishers.
He's talking about big publishers. As far as indies go,
I know Phil. I had interactions with Phil. Phil was an interesting feller. Phil was a guy who we had multiple customers come into his stores, and he would outright refuse to stock Alterna in his stores. So he's a dude who goes in there. No, yeah, he's a dude who goes in there and he's like, nope, don't want to put that there. It's not going to make us enough money. All right, well, what makes you money is when you have product to sell. And there's a weird catch-22 in retail where people go, well, no one's buying that book. And I go, well, do you have it in your store? No, I don't. Well, of course no one's buying the book. People usually don't buy things when they're not there. So that's a thing that happens over and over again within comics retail. And retailers in comics want to look at things and go, it's 1989. We're the only game in town. No, you're not. You're not anymore.
Nearly.
You know, they're not understanding on any level the fact that people can go direct and sell direct. People are doing that through crowdfunding, through their own sites, through eBay, through Amazon, so on and so forth.
The explosion in crowdfunding is like nothing that's ever happened in comics
and
before,
it's like,
with no exaggeration.
It's like the trees that are constantly
wild.
falling in the forest, and everyone wants to not hear them. You know, everyone but the people participating. Everyone but the customers that are there for it. Everyone but the creators that are in it. Like, distribution wants to ignore it. Retailers want to ignore it. Retailers, if they don't ignore it, they say, a lot of them, oh, you had a successful book on a crowdfunder? Well, that's your whole audience. Is it? It's definitely not. There's books. That? Oh my! I can't tell you how many retailers
I will
I've
beat them
talked
to death. Give me their names.
I've talked.
It's never that way.
Brian Hibbs.
It doesn't
right,
matter.
It's one of them.
You can never saturate your audience.
Right? Yeah. I can't tell you
it
how many
who
conversations I've had with that.
X-Force
even on our
number
own.
one. X-Force number one, 5 million copies. 5 million copies.
I bought one the other day, well, a couple months ago, just to have as a reader copy for the one that I sold a while back. So it was $1, but you know.
That market's saturated, you know, for X-Force 1. But actually, but not truly, because of multiple formats like digital and trades and things like that.
Exactly. You know, telling people that the market has been saturated because you went to crowdfunding is like saying that no one is ever going to listen to Beethoven again. No one is ever going to listen to AC/DC, Led Zeppelin, whatever, Elvis Presley. No one's going to listen to the Beatles. They're done. Their time is over. No one new is ever going to come along and discover these things for the first time.
I'm not concerned about that argument. I think we could easily defeat that argument because, for example, all right, I don't understand the stories that are in Brian Pulido's Lady Death comics, and I tried to read them because I'm doing something that's not Lady Death, but it's a sexy female character, and I wanted to make sure whatever I did in that realm of the dead was not too close to his, and I couldn't even really understand what it was. But Brian is a genius. His projects are exciting. His content is exciting. So Brian does his crowdfunding, and we can do this. He does his crowdfunding, and then he does his sales to shops in individual comics in different formats. He covers his costs of production, editorially, art, story, etc., produces the comic, satisfies his crowdfunding audience, and then he sells additional books to shops. Why sell to shops, Brian Pulido? What, are you dumb? Why do you have to bother with selling to shops? No, Brian's effing brilliant. He's not dumb. Brian is creating more crowdfunding customers who might spend $100 or $200 on a single order by exposing his content to people who are in shops, who are fans who are in shops.
Now, so it's funny you bring up Pulido, though, because Pulido's a great example of this. Pulido is a great example of he is a monster on crowdfunding. And yet in retail, when they were keeping track of sales, they haven't done that in a few years, posting them publicly. When they were doing that, Coffin Comics and Lady Death books struggled to even be in the top 300.
I was looking at his, Pete, what numbers were you looking at, brother? I was looking at his numbers, and on Lady Death, I think he was generating like a net revenue invoice after discount, whatever, of like at least $10K on a book that he already published for crowdfunding.
That's what I'm talking about, though. No. You would look for Lady Death. You would look for Lady Death, and he'd be at like 5,000 units sold.
That's fantastic.
That's not fantastic. Money. That's not fantastic.
It's fantastic.
For him, it's great. What I'm talking about is it's an indictment on the retail industry because it's proof of concept that he's a monster on crowdfunding. Every retailer should have been stocking at least 3 to 5 copies of everything that he did. He should have been going into the 20, 30, 40,000 range at retail.
Well, let's put our heads together.
And it's not Brian's fault. It's not at all Brian's fault.
Let's put our heads together on this one, brother, because this goes right into potential problem solving. First things first, because you're a publisher, you lay out money when you make comics, whether it's paying for the coloring, the lettering, whatever it is that you're paying for, however your deals work, profit sharing, whatever, but still you have to lay out some money to get things out the door. As publishers, the first thing we have to think about, and self-publishing is publishing as well, is covering our out-of-pocket costs. It's not a joke. That number has to be hit. No excuses, no nothing. So if Brian is going out of pocket for, let's say, 20 grand to make a Lady Death comic, probably less to be honest, but who knows? He does a lot of extra covers, but let's say he's out of pocket 20 grand. He needs to bring in at least 35,000, 40,000, especially because he has overhead. He has to hit a number to know that he's going to break even and cover all of his costs. He's definitely able to do that and in spades. He also has more overhead, has a big building, but suffice it to say, maybe this is helpful to somebody else. For my crowdfunding numbers, my budget was around 10K, 7 to 10K out of pocket editorially, with 70 cents on the dollar from crowdfunding to be able to break even. So I'd had to hit like 10 to 15,000 on crowdfunding to break even with all my costs out of pocket. Once you've done that, and that's what Brian did, to then go and reach into the comic store market, if he does 10,000 in revenue, he's probably got another $6,000 or $7,000 to come back and help to subsidize additional costs. But at the same time, he is, for his purposes, he's getting exposure. People are like, oh, they still publish Lady Death? They still,
no. I'm not saying that what he's doing is
who
wrong.
knows what those
saying
numbers
what he's doing
are.
is great.
But if you're gonna go and you're gonna say, you know something, this is the success in crowdfunding doesn't mean that you should have the same success in stores. One of the reasons I think EVS said, and I owe a lot to
I agree.
EVS.
You should have more. You should have more success at stores.
Well, I just want to say EVS got me back into publishing comics, so I'm always like pro EVS. But one of the things EVS said was he was cautious about going into stores because he does have so many people out to like take him down constantly for years that if his book wasn't a number one book in stores, could be a problem, and that is what that is. But you know, Cyberfrog might not do the same business that it might do crowdfunding to retail stores because it's different exposure, but it's also, you know, it's a different opportunity in a store. So if I'm crowdfunding and on the Mermaids, I'm averaging $60 or Crawl to the Dead, I'm averaging $60 on an average sale. We're not going to get that in a comic store, no matter how many covers we do.
That's the problem with why comics are getting killed. That's the problem, is because, okay, so there's cancel pigs, but there's sacred cows. Okay, so the sacred cows are the retailers that every single person out there, they're the lifeblood of the industry. No, the friggin' readers are the lifeblood of the industry. Selling and thinking that your only customer, when you're a publisher or creator, is the retailer, is how we got into this mess and how we got into the mess of the 90s as well. Because what happens is that
I did so much evil that way because I was a young man, not a kid, but I was a young man. I did so much evil, but the thing is, I was under a tremendous amount of pressure too to be able to constantly make my numbers.
System that lost
I had
sight.
35 people. I was responsible.
And now the system is losing sight again.
In-house.
And when it's going back to the system that works, is now what we're seeing with the indies on that ground level, because it's not the retailer that's the customer or the lifeblood of what you're doing. It's the reader. It's the customer. It's the end point of where that book goes. It's not the shelf where it languishes for 30 to 40 years or the box that it gets put into.
Until a consumer buys a product, the product is not sold. Just because I sold
like a Schrodinger's cat
of
situation.
College of the Dead.
You know Schrodinger's cat?
Well, this is something This is an industry issue thing.
The comic is in the shop. Is it alive or dead? It's not alive or dead till we see what's in the shop.
It's not. The thing of it is that's an industry problem. It's something in business. It's a lot of like higher level people get it. Bigger, lower level like managers don't get it because they figure, well, just because I sold my product to the next level, like to the distributor or to the sale or to the retailer, I sold my product. It's not my problem anymore.
Exactly.
People do have that attitude in industry.
Yep.
But a theory of constraints explains it really well. Well, because it even going back to like the 1990s, like early 1990s for independent publishers, not everybody was doing great and getting rich. You know, it's just like you could just do whatever you want and everybody's getting rich. It's like there's plenty of problems that we had. So we had to hit numbers and everybody really actually did need to get paid on Friday. And everyone else, like freelancers, were counting on the money, and like it explodes very quickly. The biggest thing I would warn people that are successful is watch it with your overhead because you get offices, you get employees, you get like, we'll get this, we'll get that. It adds up it's always cumulative. So just people should watch their expenses because it's crushed me several times about being too loose with taking on overhead. Because you get numbers that are ups and downs sometimes for things you can't even control. It's not just pandemics.
Yeah.
It just happens.
Very true.
But until a product is sold to not to the customer, a store, a retailer can be a customer. To the consumer, to the last customer, it's not sold. Theory of constraints. If you're curious about that, anybody could look that up. By Eliyahu Goldblatt, brilliant physicist who applied hard sciences to soft sciences. Just brilliant. I love this stuff. I could go on about it forever. But it really reiterated and resonated with me. I published so many stupid comic books. I mean, 1,000 comics I published plus. Some of them were amazing, but a lot of them were not amazing. But they got shipped, and we paid everyone we had to pay, and we got plenty of orders for new comics. And you get in the game, and then you're in the game.
Yeah.
But
I want to highlight.
Shops, I don't know.
Yeah.
I will say this. I don't know. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to highlight Jefferson's comment here. He says, I spoke with my LCS about Alterna. He said the low cover price was a problem for him. He wants to sell the $5 to $10 price books, but I don't want to buy those books. And that's the thing that's interesting to me is that when they're being given, and I'll just say it, they're gonna be given a 50% discount. So if they buy the book and they get the discounted shipping or free shipping or something like that, let's say they spend $50 and they get now $100 of product. So if all that $100 of product gets sold, they're not taking a loss. But especially if they're going in there and they have multiple customers, which is when we were in distribution, what I dealt with on a daily basis was customers sending me emails going, can I buy books from you direct? I'm trying to get them from my store and they don't want to carry them. I'm like, what's the point of being in the stores? What's the point of being in distribution? What's the point of surrendering 62%? Because they're willing to go, I'll pay the, whatever to get the book.
In your case of being in the stores, okay, you, Pete Cimetti, with the gorgeous hat, are not surrendering 62% when you sell to a comic store. You are not. And the reason what I'm saying that is like, it's not like that guy was going to necessarily always find you online and buy directly from you. That has to be like what Brian does, Brian Polito. That has to be a farm for a direct to consumer. And when you ship those books, the back cover of every one of your books has to say, I'm Pete Cimetti. Look at my cute hat. I crowdfund. Let's make comics happen together. Like that has to be a way to draw people to your crowdfunding. And if
that's what I'm saying though, Brian, is when Brian, I'm thinking of Polito. I'm calling you Brian. I'm so sorry, Adam.
Yeah, we're talking a lot about Brian.
What I'm saying though is that's a lost customer then for that retailer, because
the retailers
that customer does go and end up shopping directly from me.
Here's the thing.
So when they turn them away, now what happens? How many of them and it doesn't just happen to me. It happens to a lot of other creators and a lot of other indie especially. So if you get a lot of customers that you keep turning them away and they keep going direct, and the retailer essentially wants product that, let's say it sells itself, right? How great is that? You have a store, product sells itself. People come in there, you don't have to actually know anything about it. You just put it on a shelf, they walk in, they buy it. Well, You better hope. You better hope and pray. Be careful what you wish for about the product that sells itself when you're a retailer. Because as soon as that manufacturer decides, you know what, why am I giving you half or more of my sales? They sell themselves. I'll sell direct. Bye-bye business.
The retailers do get stuck with a lot of unsold comics. And we can't control that as publishers. Unless it's our comics, maybe there's something we can do. I actually had a very creative idea, but that years ago, that probably would help the industry a lot. And Marvel could do this, but they would abuse it and they would destroy the industry even worse. But here's what it is. You remember Disney dollars?
Yeah, okay.
All right. So you create collectible Marvel dollars. And you make comics returnable in exchange for that currency.
It's like Jeffrey money. Remember Toys R Us with that?
Yes, same as Jeffrey money. But that kind of currency might only be available in shops. So they could go and say, okay, well, I've got $2,000 worth of unsold Captain Marvel books. What the F can I do with them? Well, just mail them to us and we'll give you, Marvel dollars, which costs the manufacturer near to nothing, basically nothing. And then the shops get the unsold books, and then they get rid of the unsold books, and then they can figure out what to do with the currency, which they could then give to customers that actually probably would want. So you'd create a currency that would serve to deal with returnable comics for shops. I never discussed this much, back in the day. I haven't even discussed it much recently. The issue of it is bad Marvel comics in exchange for other bad Marvel comics doesn't do anything for anybody. So that could all go aside. As far as shops go, you have a price point issue because you heard that from that shop. I know Phil from Coliseum Comics was also talking about price point issues because he's running 7 shops or something. So his concern is like, I can't think about every spot on every rack of 7 shops. Like, I don't know if you've had employees before or whatever, but you've got the more employees you have exponential problems you're managing. So you have to come up with a fast and dirty way to manage your business, whatever it is. So your fast and dirty way would just be like, look, each one of those racks has to generate this amount of revenue. So we don't deal with this stuff that's this level of price point or sell through. And that's it. So if you don't fit that model, no, they're not going to experiment with it. But if you have hey, it's a 100-page Alterna book. In fact, I don't know how many books you're doing a month now, whatever you're doing, but perhaps you might consider rebinding the interiors into a larger, perfect bound piece.
See, that's where I go. That retailer sucks. And this is why I say that. This is why I say that, though, right?
Who cares? But the thing is,
this is why I say that because I get what they're doing. I get it, but I don't want them to complain then about the books that aren't selling. Because if you walk into any single,
let them come. The sex having no, you're married, brother.
Then don't.
You know what I'm saying? It is what it is.
If those books aren't selling, if you're having a tough time with these books that aren't selling, and you don't want to do anything about it when alternatives are being posed right to you, I don't know what to tell you. Now, it's one thing if you're put in a hard spot, and that's horrible. And a lot of people are being put in a hard spot. But when people are being told, here's, stock some of this. We have an audience. I can direct people to your store. You think Marvel, DC, whoever else is going to go check out this local comic shop. That's not really going to happen. But independence will. Independence will be their marketing for that store.
For Adam, for Pete, for Shane Davis, for EVS, for the great, talented, now buff Cecil, direct to consumer is where it's at. If we can sell extra copies and sell them to stores, that's fantastic. But as far as selling to shops, in terms of look, when we're selling our Triumphant Comics Super Value Pack, I think, just going off the top of my head now, I think it was actually, the biggest package was $225. We included a variant with some other books, so it was basically like an 80% discount. I think that's what it was. Then we had a 150 price point, and then like a 100 point, and then I think we had a $50 starter pack. And the inventory was sitting there. This was stuff I overprinted and landed like 12 cents a unit to land into my place that we were then selling for real money. And we had to pay telemarketers, but whatever. We had the inventory sitting there, and it was great. It actually covered us through some tight stuff. But what it also did was it exposed us, to other people. So in terms of helping the retailer or working with the retailer, if you have something that makes them money, that can help them. If you pitch something to them and they say, great, then, fine. If they don't want it, then you call the next guy. And plenty of people that we contact, or contacted, excuse me, because can't call it current because it actually was 30 years ago. They didn't want to buy. They didn't have to buy, and then we went on to the next guy. But net, we did get a bunch of revenue and a bunch more people were exposed to our books. However, that said, we did wind up stopping publishing a couple of months later, and that's why we got to telemarketing in the first place, was to raise revenue to not stop publishing. How that affected those shops, I don't know, but that's the kind of thing. Like, the shops are just trying to stay alive. So if you have a proposition for them, like in your case, now that we're talking about marketing Alterna, which I would just love it. The more success you have, the better. A shop has to buy into the Pete Simeti of it all, probably, and perhaps the offer.
Do they do that for everybody though? I don't think they do.
F everybody. Excuse me. Sorry.
That's why I'm talking about. That's why
I care about Pete Simeti. I only care about Pete Simeti.
That's why I'm talking about the broken system. My experience with retail has been you do 3 times the work to earn 1/3 the money. If I do 3 times the work for customers, direct to customer, it is quantifiable. Sometimes instantaneous. But with the retailer, you're at arm's length. You never really know what's what. You got to be through distribution. Most of them don't want to order direct. So if you're going to go through distribution and distribution doesn't want to talk to the retailer, and then the retailer doesn't want to talk to you, they want to talk to distribution. If all of that, and then no one wants you to talk to the customer. No one, when you're in distribution, wants you to talk to the customer, to the reader. They go, you leave them alone. Because everyone's like, as soon as you start talking to them, all of a sudden that means the 2 middlemen are out of business.
All right, because Pete, this is what I think.
So that's the interesting part to me. So that's why if everybody has to get on the same page where it's all about making sure we're getting something great to the reader, and everyone's looking out for their own best interests as opposed to the best interest of the reader, which is actually the way you serve your own best interest. But everybody's doing.
I like how specific you are. When Pete says reader, he means the guy that actually buys and reads the comic. Not just that buys the comic, which we do appreciate it. We would never not appreciate it. It's so important. If you don't have time to read the comics, but you want to support us and you buy our comics, that is appreciated. But to create a system that a reader gets a comic and can appreciate the comic, and that everyone in the system understands that that's the priority, that is crucial.
Yeah. And unfortunately, it's being really overlooked in the system that's outside of the independent. And I think that's where we're going to see a change, though. I think we're going to see a change because people on the independent ground level, both the reader, it's a symbiotic relationship between the creator and the reader. And that relationship is going to be so impossible to ignore that eventually whoever is wise enough is going to look at that and go, that's the way you do it, and that's how we'll succeed. But right now, there's so many people that are like, maybe do this, maybe do that, hire the best for this, do that, and get them this. And it turns into, but all of that, you're overlooking completely the relationship that needs to be established, which is the relationship that needs to be there is it has to incorporate the mindset of the reader and getting to what they care about. It's not just about get a big name, do this kind of book, get this well-known character. I mean, I can show you, like, for every big name, right, we can both show each other. For every big name and big character, we can show you massive amount of failures from those individuals. So there's no such thing as a sure bet just because you got a big name on it with a big character. You got to get something in there that hits people.
I will say, too, like, it's, I think the best word for it is just flabbergasting to me. I've heard of flabbergasted, but I've never heard of flabbergasting, but I'm still flabbergastering. I'm flabbergastering. That editorial doesn't have any kind of like discussion in this, because a lot of like
right?
editors
Yeah.
are annoying. A lot of them are
That's
incompetent.
purposeful.
But it's like, but people don't like, I got into comics, really got into comics on Jack Kirby stuff, old comics from the 60s when I was a little guy in the 70s. But I got involved and became someone really interested in Marvel in the 1980s when Jim Shooter was editor in chief of Marvel Comics, you know, on Daredevil, also very into Chris Claremont's X-Men, which is soap opera format, and also Jim Shooter's Secret Wars, Ninja Turtles, which caused me to publish my parody comic G.I. Jackrabbits. But Shooter, what he was doing at Valiant, where it was story focused, and the storytelling was like old man storytelling with, you know, a 6-panel grid. But what he was doing was story, creating interest from readers. He was the other guy, like yourself.
Oh, Adam, you just muted out. That was weird. I wonder what happened. The mic couldn't handle you.
I just muted. All right. Let me see.
Oh, that's weird.
That.
Now it's coming through your
I have some kind of.
It's coming through your headphones now. Your the mic there, so you're greatly diminished.
I will not diminish. I shall overcome. All right, microphone. Oh, what did you do?
Did it decide just to disconnect your microphone? That's almost what it seems like it decided to do. Do you want to pop out and then try to pop back in? Man, I think now you're freezing, at least on my end. Chat, let me know if he's freezing for you guys too. He's freezing, and I'm hearing kind of a robo-wing. It's hard to argue sometime.
Right back. Yeah. Let me
Okay.
try that. I apologize.
No problem.
He's happy. What are you doing, bastard?
Okay. All right. Yeah. Hopefully he can get everything fixed. My biggest thing with this whole topic, especially, is that comics in terms of saving. People say that a lot. No, comics doesn't need saving. Comics is fine. The comic industry, in its current iteration, needs help. Comics as a medium is unbelievably strong. We all see that day in, day out. You can see it. It's everywhere. Comic as a storytelling art form ain't going anywhere. But the industry itself is it's the tail wagging the dog. So we're not getting people who are captains of their own ship steering that ship in an effective way based off of things that you would think are common sense. Sales, interaction, engagement, all that kind of stuff. It's being steered in a different way. Adam was talking about editorial. Why doesn't the editorial do something? So think about it like it's a professional sports league. And think about teams being coached by someone who has next to no business coaching that team. And that's kind of what a lot of editorial is like right now. In a sports team, that coach is going to get fired, maybe replaced once or twice on a team, depending on how that team is operating during the course of a season. So you're not seeing that. You're not seeing that happen in the big leagues of comics because it's purposeful. And when that's not going to happen, you could get any creator you want in there. If the top isn't understanding, the ownership isn't understanding that there changes need to be made. Doesn't matter what players you get on that team. So I was just comparing comics as an industry to the professional sports leagues, and coaches are like the editors.
Yeah.
And the creators are like players. Okay, your mic is all perfect now. So you can replace all the players you want if you got a crappy coach. Those great players, their talent level is going to be diminished. Their talent level is going to be next to nothing. You're not going to see anything close to what they could be. So you can get the greatest players in the game playing, but if that coach doesn't know their butt from their elbow, you're going to have people doing things, all kinds of stupid things that they shouldn't be doing. But if you get a great coach in there, they could take a ragtag group of people who maybe should just be good minor league players, and all of a sudden that team's a contender. So if you get editorial in there, that's great. They can elevate the creators. But if you have horrible editorial, it doesn't matter what creators you get in there, they're going to diminish those creators. So editorial needs a sea change big time. And if they're not getting one, that's a purposeful thing that's occurring.
It's 1,000,000% I agree. And for anyone who's curious, the audiobook I was listening to earlier was Marvel Comics: The Untold Story. And you get like inside production details when Jim Shooter was working with Frank Miller and teaching him what to focus on.
I was listening to that 3 weeks ago.
Gangsta, I'm telling you what. Listen to it. I've listened. This is my third listening because I'm planning on publishing. But when I publish, respectfully to everyone else, it's not just to make some money. You know, this is what I've been passionate about comics since I was a kid. And I truly was a kid because I was 15, Peter.
There you go.
Since I was a kid saying, damn, these Ninja Turtles are cool. I love G.I. Joe. Why isn't anyone doing a G.I. Joe parody? They were doing animal parodies like left, right, and center. So like, I'm going to do this G.I. Joe comics parody, G.I. Jackrabbits. But then from, just more and more on top of that. But definitely listening to the history of Marvel Comics is great to listen to because you hear from when Jack Kirby came in and what his focus was and what he was trying to do, what Stan Lee was trying to do, and what the contribution of Martin Goodman was to the extent that you can know it. And there were contributions for everyone, from everyone. But even like Jim Shooter was helping Frank Miller to understand you're telling a story. You know the story. And Miller came into him once. They were working on Daredevil, and he was kind of helping him learn what to do with Daredevil and understand principles that Shooter learned, not because Shooter is God, not because Shooter is a genius or something, because he learned it working at DC, and he learned it like having been in the industry for a long time. It's old man stuff, passing stuff that was learned by other people onto the younger generation, like an apprenticeship type of thing.
It's how civilization was built.
This is just civilization stuff. This isn't like, oh, Jim Shooter is like... Jim Shooter has a personal thing where he's not... He comes off as much harsher than he means to. And he's like 7 feet tall. He's very tall. And he's kind of a scary... He could be very domineering. So he's had that issues. Plus, he didn't have a lot of manager experience when he was management at Marvel. So issues there.
And he inherited a madhouse.
He inherited a madhouse's madhouse. If you'd listen to it, you'd be like, why didn't he just murder everyone?
You'd be surprised they're not swinging from the chandeliers and the lights and just crawling like on the walls like Spidey.
Editors writing their own comics, people doing whatever they wanted, people saying, listen, we don't care about sales, man. Why are you trying to make characters? We're trying to make stories. We're doing our thing, dude. Like, what?
Echo chamber.
But what Shooter taught Frank, and Frank came into him, Frank Miller, was Frank was like, oh, I get it. I know the story, and I'm trying to tell the story to the readers. And Miller is like, and Shooter is like, yes, that's it. Absolutely, exactly. It sounds simple, but it's not that simple. It's, you know the story, and everything you do when you're executing on that comic has to be to convey that story to the reader. Elektra, who's a character I still have a crush on, was a character that Frank Miller picked up from The Spirit, she was very similar to a character, a mysterious woman in the spirit that Will Eisner did. Frank just borrowed that. Stick, who is this old man mentor, who I also love and think is super cool, is a character that Miller, I haven't seen this confirmed by other people, but it's impossible to not notice, stole from a book called No Ordinary Moments, I think is the title of the book, where there's this old mentor that was helping someone else who was a gymnast. But which is only to say that, yes, you can combine sources and ideas and things like that. But the disciplines that you learn from a good mentor, not from Marvel's editors now, but the disciplines that you learn from a good mentor is what makes your work absolutely great. It's what got Frank Miller to understand
apprentice
that he could
to
do
master.
Become master. Miller's work was impressionistic, which they talk about in the book, Marvel Comics: The Untold Story, so that like the design of the panels, but not just the design of the panels, like the coloring, the drawing of the room, the drawing of office furniture, it would all contribute as part of telling the story, which is brilliant, but not something he could have done without the freedom and also the guidance from Jim Shooter. And that's why we love whoever loved Miller's Daredevil, that's why we love Miller's Daredevil. Exactly what you said, Pete. The guidance from editorial to help people to do their best work. But without that, of course you're not going to have great comics, because you could have incredible, like a lot of the Image Comics guys, you had a lot of very exciting, bright, brilliant work. And Rob Liefeld is a superstar. At the same time, what is the story of these characters? A lot of time, it's like a lot of it's high concept, because great talent after Shooter left didn't always get the attention that they deserve from editorial people who could help them understand how to create those iconic characters.
Yeah.
So, but we can do better with that. We can do better with the stuff that we create. We can learn from each other. We can help each other. When it comes to dealing with retailers, look, for them, it's got to be monetary. If they have an opportunity to make money, not all, but many will take us up on it. And I'll say one other crazy thing about retail, Pete, if you want me to say something crazy.
Sure.
But it's a good idea. Why aren't we cooperating with retailers in some way? If there were 100 or 200 retailers.
Hey, don't look at me. I've tried.
You sell to shops directly.
Okay, so when the pandemic hit, we were one of the only publishers that was still up and running and still going to get stuff out to people, right? About 200 retailers signed up with us to start ordering direct. About 65 made good on that promise to order direct. They got books in. Within 8 to 9 months, it went to 25.
65 stores?
65 stores.
Not a lot.
Not a lot. Then it went
this
to
25. This would be 65 out of a universe of maybe 2,000.
Yeah, now it's probably closer to like 1,600, 1,700 stores. Overall.
Of the total universe?
Of the total, yeah. Yeah, the total comic shop. It's like dedicated comic shop. Not comic shops where, it's like more like a pop culture shop or a Funko shop or the back issues. Like they'll order new stuff. Probably 1,600 to 1,700 shops total. And even that might be a generous figure. Of those stores, though, only maybe 10 to 15% will even order anything past the top 10 publishers. Mm-hmm. And of those, only about 80% of those 10 to 15% will actually place the orders when a customer wants that book. Because I've dealt with too many stores that turn money away when customers come in wanting, even sometimes they go in wanting our entire line. Put anything Alterna on my pull list. And sometimes they just don't want to. And so honestly, that's
Pete,
a thing that's puzzling.
I have to throw this at you. If you have customers who will say, listen, put anything Alterna on my pull list. If you have consumers that say stuff like that, and for whatever reason, they don't want to buy direct from you, they could just I'm sure you accommodate that, right?
Oh, yeah. That's what we would, that's how we have a lot of our customers currently.
So
It's from retailers
that's
not
fantastic.
wanting to. Yeah.
But
That's
there
why we
has
had to
be-
start focusing on direct sales more.
There has to be a retailer product where you could have like, this is the $15 retailer. I mean, particularly with Old Turner, like maybe a $25 retail product that has, some larger discount or something akin to my super value pack. I'm like, listen, it's cover price, $200.
Well,
And your
increasing
cost
the
is
price point though, again though, that's how we're getting to the situation we're
no,
getting
no.
in
I'm sorry,
comics.
not the consumer price point, not the consumer price point. Even just the wholesale package of like, look, I'm giving you $250 retail for $100, mother effer. Do you want it or not? Because they can make some money with you, like the crack guys do. Like we give you some stuff, you make some money, and then you give you some stuff, you're interested. Then after they get interested, they've had some exposure, then you do a little bit more with them. But there may be some shops that are just like, look, okay, I'll buy a box of $100 worth of product for $30 if that's what you've got. Put it on the shelf, and when you run out of it, give me a call. I'll sell you a reorder. It doesn't have to be 70% off. You have to work the numbers. But and also on your side, on our side as a publisher, if I can create a box that has $250 retail, my choice, I'm not going to screw anybody. Give them stuff that's saleable. But if it's my choice, some of it is the extra stuff that I sort of have, and let them make money and I make money and we get some exposure in the place. But also, you get to make a phone call for not trying to make a $20 retail sale. You're making a phone call for what's a $250 retail sale. It's like $100 to you. We'd have to talk about some of the numbers offline or whatever, but just the numbers that work for you that might work for the shop. And I understand it's a lot of work, but at the same time, like my mainline business, like why does Adam have food to eat? Because it's not really from YouTube. I've had a telemarketing business to business, for roughly 20 years or so. And
But okay,
when
so
I do
this,
sales, when I find a client, I'm going to still do more. We only do like what we do is we set up business-to-business appointments for companies that might be interested in offering Aflac or a competitor to Aflac to their customers, voluntary benefits. It's the only reason we do that is because there are independent sales reps that always need that, and they pay me an astronomical amount of money to have an appointment that I don't even guarantee takes place. So a sit-down appointment with an office manager, we charge you $250 for that. If you don't want to pay that, we're not going to work with you, and you're not going to work with us. So for a lot of people, it's not worth it to them. For some people whose time is very valuable, it is worth it to them. When I get reorders for my sales, we're always selling something that, is usually a $2,500 sale. There's usually 10 of them. And I hardly even call people. I don't call people that much. We get reorders in all the time for people that want to do more. And if we want to sell more, then it's always, hey, how you doing? It's Adam. We're doing our orders for next month. Just want to know if you want to get anything in. Want to make sure we have enough for you. We have time for you. If not, totally fine. Have a great holiday. Talk to you next month. Just leave them a voicemail. Hey, this is Adam. Like, always the same pitch. I've got something you want. I'm not selling anything customized. If they want it customized, I can't give it to them. And we just keep it like very simple. It's not made me a billionaire or anything like that. Just basically pays the bills, keeps it very simple. But somewhere, particularly because what you make, your comics are great. They're a lot of fun and there's a lot of heart in all of them. You're welcome, but no compliments. That's just what you happen to do. So for you to have what you have and then offer that to a shop that wants to have some new fun comics come in every month from some cool little indie company, like who are these guys? That's a reasonable offer. But I think it's not the same as selling them at all through Diamond. It's like they have to buy into the Pizza Medi thing, which should lead back to check out my YouTube channel.
That's the thing, is that when they do that, forget it. They blacklist me. I mean, I can't tell you how many stores blacklisted us for multiple reasons. The Comicsgate stuff, yeah, oh man. I can't tell you how many.
By the way, do you ever go on the channels anymore for that? Are you your own thing now, or?
I go everywhere when I'm invited and when I can. But so
I'm gonna invite you.
So the Comicsgate stuff from 2018, and not even like being like, "Hey, I'm Comicsgate," but just being like, "Can we just make comics and focus on just selling to people and people buy what they want to buy?" And Like, is that cool? Can we do that? And maybe not block people that we have no interaction with ever. Don't do the block list thing.
Right.
Is that a
right.
possibility? Can we not, castigate the readers? Can we just focus on the storytelling and doing what we got to do? Comics are tough enough as it is. Just for that is like the world
Do
of
you ever
comics
feel like
is,
the last person who cares, Pete?
No, because I know the readers care. So I don't feel like the last
No,
person
beyond
who
the
cares.
readers, but the guys making this stuff. Sometimes, a little bit.
Not at the creator level, but sometimes at the publisher level.
Okay.
And that's why I'm happy to be outside the system at this point too. So the retailers were the first to lead a boycott on us. Several of them. You had the Big Bang store in
ridiculous.
Ireland. You had several within the States, and a couple of big ones too. And I saw screenshots from some retailers that were friends that were like, "This is what they're doing in the forums here, with the retailer back channel."
Retailers
They're
boycotting
boycotting
Alterna.
So they were boycotting us for that, on top of the fact they already had started boycotting us when we were doing newsprint. They didn't like the $1.50 thing. They said we were going to kill the industry. Too low of a price point.
Okay.
Then a bunch more piled on when we were doing newsstand. When we were doing newsstand and putting the books out 2 months after the comic shops got them. So let's say the comic shop got theirs in October, newsstand would get theirs in December.
They had a
The whole
problem
point,
with that?
they had a big problem with that.
Why?
Big problem. Big problem.
They thought that
said
competed?
Yes. And I said it doesn't compete, it helps, because on the back cover of the newsstand book, we have a comic shop locator ad that'll send the reader to your shop
right.
if they have one in the area.
Boycotting you because of a Comicsgate, whatever, adjacent, whatever.
And this was
All right,
before
that-
the Comicsgate stuff. This was the build-up.
That's stupid, but I can comprehend that because of the hate for the woke and I get it, the whole woke hate and stuff. I get that, the cancel pig thing. They make no sense, but they're very passionate about it. But to say that you selling on newsstands somehow hurts retail stores.
Yeah, and I would
That-
say to them, so you don't stock Funko Pop? You don't stock anything that someone else could go get on Amazon or go get at another store?
Did,
And they go,
like,
it's different. It's different.
Didn't comics start on newsstands?
Yeah, but they wanted to put an end to that right away, didn't they?
They wanted
They
wanted exclusivity to direct market,
yeah,
but they can't give you numbers bigger than like 5 copies of this and 2 copies of that.
That's what I'm talking about. Is that retail in comics does not provide enough business to make it so you can only do retail through the direct market. You have to, especially as an independent, you have to expand and take care of your business. Otherwise, you're not going to have comics for the direct market. So if you don't sell wherever you can possibly sell, if you don't do what you can do for your business and incorporate, hopefully, the direct market of comic shops into that business strategy, then
Like it's
you're
ancillary.
going to struggle. Yeah. But if you have to eliminate it because it's eliminating itself for you, so if the direct market is basically largely telling you, we don't want you here, why keep on begging to be in this area in which they don't want you in? So then
Pete,
now all of a
honestly,
sudden they
these
turn
stories
around
are-
and they go, and I got to tell you, Glenn is one of them. Glenn stocked our books. He's 40 minutes from me. Glenn stocked our books at Comic Book Palace when we were
Okay.
in Diamond. I've met him. He's a good dude, but when we left Diamond, he had several customers that wanted our books, and they said, you can order them direct now. They'll be even more affordable for you. They'll give a bigger discount. Just work with Pete direct. He goes, I don't want to work with him direct because of the fact that he can't justify ordering enough to make it worth it to order direct. So, again, all he had to maybe do was order about 20 books, and we would have 5 to 6 come out at that point in time every other month. So he had a bunch of books he could have sold. He's got a bunch now that he could sell. He has to pivot. These retailers have to pivot. They're not going to they can complain all they want about Marvel and DC. Marvel and DC are not going to change. They're just
But
not.
you can't understand on their side, and you have a way that they can order through your website, even on a wholesale
Yes.
basis. Is that right?
Yeah.
So
They get a
that's
one-time
great.
discount code, and then they can go and order and just use that code whenever they want. No minimums, no maximums.
Do some retailers do that?
Only about 6 at this point. So
Have you asked any of the other ones why they don't? Do they find it unwieldy or something?
either it's a time thing. Oh, it's an extra 5 minutes, and I've had some that literally tell me it's an extra 5 minutes, and that extra 5 minutes we just don't want to do it. I was like,
Okay.
wow, okay. Then it's a thing of, oh well, some of these just don't look like they would sell here, and I'm like, again, it goes back to the thing of you don't know what the books are they're selling. I'm telling you what sells. I give you a top 10 of like, here, if you don't know what to order, these are the most popular books. Will help promote your shop when you carry them. And then there's the other retailer, which is the most puzzling. The ones that will send me messages. And I would get these every now and then that will go, I'm tired of stocking the big two. I'm tired of the crap they're putting out. I want to order indie. I want to start diversifying. I want to place a big order with you guys real soon. I go, great, let's work it out. Here's your code. Here's everything, blah, blah, blah. 2 weeks pass by, nothing. A month passes by, nothing. I send an email to follow up, no response. 2 months passes by. I send another email, no response. It's literally they drop off the face of the earth.
So if I'm that retailer,
that's happened multiple times.
All right,
And
so
there's
if I'm-
even a ton
let's
of
say-
people in the chat talking about it now, saying how they've gone in to try to get indie books. And the retailers turn them away. They don't want to order indie books. They don't
all
want
right,
to.
if I'm that retailer, how much of a wholesale purchase were you anticipating that I would have made?
Oh, maybe
guy-
$20-$30. Nothing crazy.
It's too effing small, maybe. I
But
mean, like, if I'm a
at the
retailer,
same time, though, how many
if
books
I'm a
do you think
retailer and
they're
I was like,
ordering?
if
how
I'm
many-
a retailer, Pete, and I have people coming in my shop and they're browsing around and stuff, do you have an alternative display? I mean, obviously you don't need one, but is there sort of like, this is my countertop alternative display?
We have a countertop display, but at the
Okay.
same time, too, every other publisher doesn't have a display.
Never mind those other publishers. So I do have an
No,
alternative
well,
display.
I'm saying that if the retailer needs us to play at different rules to participate in order to put us in their store, then I don't want to be in that store. The retailers need to understand that is their store. They need to organize it. A lot of these stores aren't organized. A lot of these stores are definitely not organized for new customers. They're not organized by genre, and in a way, imagine going into a library that's not organized by genre and then alphabetized and broken up subcategory. Imagine going into the bookstore. Imagine going to the grocery store and it's not organized in a fashion other than just one department and then everything blah. So you have to have organization. We have organization by genre. You can go in there. You don't know what book is what. Alternate, like if I'm a new customer or even a current one, there's so many publishers, there's so many books. If every book is organized by publisher or alphabetized, that doesn't mean anything to anybody. If they're organized by genre, I like horror, I like sci-fi, I like superheroes, I like this, I like that. You can go in there and check them out and go get these books and go, oh, okay, next to the horror is that, and that's where I find my superhero books. Oh, look at all these other superhero books they've got. I didn't know that there's more other than Marvel and DC. It's up to the store to do that because it's their prerogative to make sales. It's not a museum, it's not their garage, it's not their basement. It's a store. Everything should be selling. So if I can't count on the retailer to do their job and sell that effectively to customers, because I can't go in that store and hand sell to everybody, and if I'm going to do that, I'm going to keep all the money. So if every single person's
You would
idea,
if you could.
right? If every single person's idea was to say, and I can't tell you again how many retailers I've had the conversation with where they go, well, you got to have customers coming in that want it. So you have to tell the customers to come in our store that they want Alterna. I go, okay, so we do that. And it's still not good enough. And then
Have
I
you
start
ever tried-
thinking, if I have to do that, if everybody has to do that, to tell the customer to go to the retailer and request it, again, this isn't 1989. I'm going to just sell direct to that customer. While I have them, instead of telling them to go elsewhere,
You can't tell them
I'll just tell them
into
to
a
go
shop.
to my shop.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you can't tell
they'll
them
go
to
to
go
my shop instead of going to someone else's shop.
How many
So the
comics a month
retailers
do you-
are becoming their own worst enemy because they're constantly doing things to push all sides of everybody away. The retailer is pushing away the reader, the publisher, and the creator. And then I understand their complaints, but at the same time, when alternatives are posed to them, many don't want to take those alternatives. Many want
many-
the same thing.
How many comics a month are you typically putting out?
Well, we don't. We do a very different system now. So we do generally quarterly releases now, between 4 to 6.
4 to 6 comics quarterly.
Yeah, and sometimes depending on, like, King Cryptid is a traditional crowdfunder, so I'll do 4 to 5 issues a year, and I'm eventually going to build up to 10 to 12 a year, with 2 crowdfunders for King Cryptid per year.
If you had a shop, that would get it, like, do you do a launch when you do? I've been a little bit out of the loop, so I apologize for that. But if you're going to launch King Cryptid, you're going to do a new King Cryptid campaign. Do you do that as on a live stream, or how do you do that?
Yeah, we'll do a live stream. We'll send out a newsletter, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, very similar stuff to what I used to do when we had books in previews. We would do live streams promoting it. I would obviously contact retailers. I did that way more when we had distribution. But it was part of the business plan to do that. Until I realized, like, wow, we really busted our butt this month to promote this great book to retailers, give them a free preview, get in touch with them, talk to them through phone and email, all that other stuff. And then you look at the sales and you're like, so that was 1,500 sales on a number one. That's great. That's 500 sales we could have just sold direct and just kept it all. And if we did that work for the reader, not for the retailer, because it would all be like behind the scenes type work when you're communicating with the retailer.
Can I ask you this question? I mean, it's public knowledge. So if you publish on Indiegogo, you're doing Indiegogo now too. You're not doing your own platform right
so
now?
we do Indiegogo and we do Alterna's site as well. When we do crowdfunding,
you could raise funds on Alterna?
Yeah.
Okay, very
So we'll
cool.
take pre-orders, do things like that as well for it too.
Do you crowdfund on Alterna as well?
Yeah, essentially we'll combine the two scores. Like the King Cryptid total right now is like over 30,000 combined between Indiegogo and the Alterna site.
Very cool. Everyone should retweet every time they see Pete tweet anything about King Cryptid. It's a huge help. Just my 2 cents to everybody. Pete's not going to always tell you, but I think we have to just let people know. Like, that is so significant for us. Because, of course, we appreciate the backing. Not everybody can afford it, too. But even if you back it, it always helps when you retweet. But, all right, so my quick question is, do you know what the average revenue is generated from your campaign when you're doing King Cryptid? Like on Mermaids?
Well, not King Cryptid, but the average one generated from the books is generally between like 12 to 18,000.
Oh, I'm sorry. What I meant to say was on a per order basis. So if I got a new customer on College of the Dead.
It's usually maybe about 35 or 40. 35 or 40.
Okay.
Yeah.
We
so
had a couple.
It's most people not just buying the books. They'll buy other things that we're offering too.
Okay. When I did, I don't know if you do this or not, when I did College of the Dead, we had a couple different variant covers that boosted our revenue. So whatever works for you. But our average was around 60, and it was still kind of low compared to some other people. But what I was thinking about too was, I wonder, because shops generally don't have exciting things happening, I wonder if I cooperated, or if we cooperated with 5 shops, 10 shops. And since it's live streaming, if we made an event of launching our crowdfunding with those shops, where the customers of those shops could actually buy our crowdfunding products.
I think there's maybe a way. There's maybe a way to do that, not with the launching of a crowdfunder, but maybe with once you get the product in hand. Because a lot of stores, and I don't want the stores to take on the onus of also participating within crowdfunding, because I understand they need product to sell, and something that's going to be delivered in a year or two, in some cases, is not going to help them.
I think one of the great things,
but you can have like a re-release type of party,
a re-release,
stream,
or more
when
of
the
what
book is
like
in hand.
One of the things Eric July did 3 things I think that are brilliant. 1, his own crowdfunding site was brilliant. 2, framing it as a universe, also brilliant. 3, having the book done in advance, for especially Pete, as well as I do, if not better by this point, how harrowing it is to put a book together. So to have the book done for a new guy who's publishing before you actually offer it is like, okay, that's 90% of my nightmares are gone, because I'm not going to have like all this lateness and stuff. But if a book is done in advance, it does seem like it does facilitate that kind of a model. I mean, I'm wondering about it because each of these stores, they might say like, well, we're not profitable. We have 300 customers in and out on a regular basis or a semi-regular basis. They may have an email list of 2,000 people. I don't know exactly. On foot traffic is a store that has many people that, even if you're Brian Polito with some of the biggest campaigns ever, are not going to be interacting with through a crowdfunding. Yes, everyone uses YouTube, but not everyone uses YouTube who's going to buy like the next College of the Dead book
It's a good idea. The only thing that I would have to say to combat that would just be my own experiences and a lot of other people's experiences too, probably some of your own experiences. Sure. Have you done signings at retail, at comic shops? How many times do they roll out like the red carpet for you and promote it and get people drummed up, excited about, oh man, creator's going to be here?
Sometimes it clicked, sometimes it did not. I think there are hoops that you could get up a system. You could put together a system with hoops to kind of jump through to see if people were engaged or not.
It's few and far, right? I've had retailers, I've showed up, especially to one. I've said this story before on this channel. I showed up to this signing once. The guy goes, I was kind of hoping you didn't come today.
Did he say that?
Yeah. I was like, what do you mean?
I would never say that to Pete Cimetti.
It was an hour 20 away. I was like, what do you mean you was hoping I wouldn't come? Oh, well, see, our store really isn't set up for signings.
What?
And so we were hoping that you wouldn't come. And I'm thinking like, why the hell then did you set up a signing with me? Right? So our store's too small for signings. I think maybe my son set that up with you and just wasn't thinking about it. And I'm like, we set this up 2 months ago. I'm thinking like, why? What you could have at any time been like, you know what? This, he didn't know what he was doing. This store is too small for a signing. So he didn't promote it. He was hoping I wouldn't show up. And he also didn't have a table or chairs ready. He had to go scrounge up a chair from an abandoned, closed down building within the same building, get in like the back to get a table and a chair. And then no one was there. No one was there. We made sales to 2 people who just managed to come in. And I can't tell you how many signings I've had that were like that. Now, not where they tell me I hope you didn't show up, but in the same mentality of like, you go into the store and you're like, the signing's today, right? They can't be bothered to put a sign up. They can't be bothered to tell anybody about it. They put you in Lord knows where part of the store, and then you're just there. And it's a degrading, depressing, demoralizing experience. And I've gone through that. A lot of people have gone through that. And again, this is at the detriment of the store. Turn it into an event. If I have a retail store and I'm inviting someone to do a signing, I don't care who they are. I don't care if they're Todd McFarlane or Joe Schmo at Small Press Publisher Company. I'm treating them like they're royalty, and I'm letting the readers and the customers know when they come in, we got a signing going on today. You got to go meet this guy. Their book looks great.
Do you guys
and if
know
you
where
don't have that within you as a retailer, you need to stop effing retailing. Because it's hurting everyone. And there's so many retailers that are like that. I can't even tell you. But yeah, we met at the Sunrise Mall.
Yeah, that's exactly right. We met at the Sunrise Mall in Long Island years ago.
Yeah,
Pete
my second year when I was publishing. I was like 22, 23.
How old are you now? So I know how long ago
I'm 39.
That was. Jesus Christ! I've known you 17 years?
Yeah. That was like the first or second year of Alterna, man.
Let me tell you something. I've known Peter Cimetti for 17 years now. That's incredible. But I was so impressed with Peter because he's like, what is this guy doing at my, literally, not the comic shop at the mall. Don't misunderstand this.
No, there was a table set up right in front of the Walmart over there.
He was at a table at a mall,
a Christmas
like a mall.
Fair. It might almost be to the day, Adam.
Was it Christmas?
That's
amazing.
This time of year is a holiday weekend.
And I'm just like, well, that's an independent comic, and I want to publish independent comics again. Let me go talk and tell people about personality. Let me tell this guy about my personality comics thing that I did in 10 years prior, whatever, I guess, whatever the numbers were. But geez, Peter, that's amazing. But the point of it is like Peter is out there. He loves comics, constantly hustling, trying to figure out what works. You're absolutely right to be frustrated with retailers. All I can say with retailers, it's the same thing with like the clients for the telemarketing. Like, actually, some of my clients with telemarketing, they make no money off my stuff, but some of them make an absolute ridiculous fortune off my stuff because it's insurance. They get residuals. They make a ton of money. They get bonuses. I had a client who was telling me like, oh, if I open up a few more accounts, I'll make $25,000 bonus for this quarter. Like, oh, no wonder you hire me because I don't make that kind of a bonus. But what's the point? The point is, either we can interest those customers or we can't. But I absolutely see your point of you've got an amazing support structure of customers that understand that you do care about comic books. You are putting out good stuff. You do deliver what you promise. And yeah, that energy going into those people does make a lot of sense. And as far as selling to shops, it's not like you're going to tell your marketing department, hey guys, I want to see a 10% increase this year. We're the marketing department. We're boxing the boxes.
Yeah. We're the cavalry. No one's coming to save us.
No one is coming to
We're
save us.
We're the cavalry.
I think that there's business potentially in repackaging some of your content for other markets potentially, and I asked you before, I think if you do foreign licensing on any of the content, it's not your content.
So Alterna's creator owned. So yeah, it's not
creator
my
owned.
content.
So,
like King Cryptid's my content, the chair is my content, that kind of a thing. But like Trespasser was optioned for a movie. So in that respect, the creators the creator, Justin M. Ryan, is the contact of that, and he's the one coordinating whatever. Alterna doesn't get anything of that. But if Trespasser takes off and becomes a great hit and goes to theaters or does whatever it does,
you'll sell comics.
We'll sell comics. So so it's that respect. But then there's other facets of the industry, and obviously we know them over the years where certain things happen with certain creators, and then those books fall out of contract for whatever reason, and then that's how it is. It's just a part of the business. It's always been a part of the business. I understand the plight of the retailer, and that's why it does frustrate me, because I have a great love for the comic shop. I don't want anybody to confuse my words on that. If I didn't, I wouldn't be upset about a lot of the stuff that goes down. But what I'm upset about in regards to their plight is the fact that there are so many books out right now that are amazing, and they're available. Not books that are being crowdfunded right now, books that have been crowdfunded, that are done, that creators have these books. If I'm a retailer that's struggling, the first place I go to right now would be to crowdfunders and send messages to successful creator campaigns of books that look great, and I would send them and go, look, I'm a retailer. I would love to know, can I get your book in my store? Would you be willing to give me a whatever percentage discount, 50%, 40%, etc.
I think, and I was thinking about this of like, maybe I should talk to, because I would only want to do this if I could have like a big umbrella, but maybe I should talk to Jeppy or someone who has a reach into a lot of shops already of like, look, let's create a facility. Like, let's create an ongoing venture of bringing crowdfunded books after they're crowdfunded into shops.
Yes, Diamond should do that. Yeah, 100%. Diamond should have, whoever's distributing as well, should have an outreach in terms of getting in touch with people who are crowdfunding to be like, hey, look, this book looks great. I think it would do well in comic shops. Let's set you up for distribution if you're interested.
Now, how are you still doing alternative distribution?
Not in the current state. I'm gonna stay tight-lipped on that for a little bit because it's gonna morph into something. Alterna is gonna be for lack of a better word, I guess, evolving over the next 2 years or so. Cool. I'm gonna be not to give too many details. I'm gonna be putting my money where my mouth is in terms of selling other indie titles, but that I'm not publishing.
One of the things you offered in your alternative distribution that I thought was, frankly, too generous was that you would buy some books from publishers like me, or whoever was publishing crowdfunding, and then you would then resell them and work on it. I think you have to be super careful about that. And I only care about you. Because, even though you can sell a couple of probably just about anything, then you're kind of in retail. You have to be really careful It's so funny because
Oh yeah, well, I mean, well, okay, so if it was your books, let's say, and I'm like, all right, well, I think let's start off. I'll order 2 copies of this, 3 copies of that.
Yep.
Let's say in total I'm ordering, or maybe you just have one book, and I go, okay, can you sell me 3 copies of this at 50% off, and
Right.
I'll pay you, and then you ship them to me, and then we put them on the site and we sell
and
them,
then you're retailing.
and then I'll retail it, and I think that's how Alterna is going to evolve. We're going to become a publisher / retailer, which is kind of already what we're doing in some essence anyway, because I don't own what's being published at Alterna. I oversee it, but I help guide and edit in a way, but I don't own it. So this
you
way
own
I
King
can,
Cryptid and you own
but
the
I
chair.
own King Cryptid. I own the chair. Yeah.
Well, that's you wouldn't pre-order it, you wouldn't pre-sell it. This would just be taking inventory and reselling.
This would be a secondary market type thing. So
this would just be like Pete recommends.
Yeah, it would basically be like, other publishers would be like a category, let's say, on the
I think maybe
site.
if you
And
could
then
limit it, like you have an
you'd have
email
that.
list. You have an email list, you have social media, you have a platform.
And then this way people, because a big complaint, again, I'm always having my ear to the ground of what people are talking about. And
What
a
are
big
people saying?
Okay, so they miss out on books from crowdfunding, let's say. And then they go, all right, well, I got to hunt them down. I got to find a place. And then I got to pay for shipping with that guy, pay for shipping with this guy, pay for shipping with the other guy. And some of them I miss them because there's no core of where I go to buy them afterwards. There's no store. Comics already rarely have retail set up for online purchasing. It's like Midtown, TFAW, and maybe like 2 or 3 others that most people know about. Other
do you
than
do any
that, it's
business?
like
Just a quick aside, do you any business with Midtown?
we've tried, and they've had talks, but they don't want to do anything direct. So
They really
that was-
don't want to do anything direct.
And I was like, how many sold through you? Oh, well, we would get like 1 to 200 sometimes of a book. I'm like, we could just do that direct. No,
wanna do it.
if you go back with Diamond, let us know. I'm like,
Jeez.
you get a
Okay.
bigger discount and we'll
Only reason I asked is I was
Okay.
in there a couple of months ago with a friend who knows them very well, and they were just so nice to me. And they're like, "Oh yeah, if you ever want to do a signing at them," or I'm like, I'm not really at that
and
stage
they're
right now.
they're nice. It's the same thing with a lot of retailers where when I was in Diamond, they're all crying for an alternative. Oh, we wish we weren't having to do Diamond this, Diamond that. And I'm like, okay. Well, then we're not with Diamond anymore. I'm like, all right, we're not with Diamond
But
anymore.
Diamond is-
you can order direct.
Diamond was
well,
very difficult.
If you were with Diamond, then we would order again. I'm like, so when we were with Diamond, you said that if it wasn't for Diamond, them driving you nuts, you'd support us.
No,
more.
but
And then when we're out of Diamond, if we
it's
were
a-
in Diamond,
it's a
we'd
factor.
support.
It's a factor of scale. It really is a factor of
It's
scale.
it's a moving the
unfortunately,
goalposts.
even though like Glenn O'Leary, whoever, any given retailer, any operation, it does cost something to place an order. There's shipping, but as much as you and I know that shipping creates friction because a store has to pay for shipping, imagine that shipping cost probably equal or double the shipping cost is their cost out of pocket to place that order. There is like a thing with it does cost money to generate a purchase order. In some cases, yeah, that's only being technical, but people do look at it that way, and
Then
it's
they have
true.
then the retailers have to be comfortable with then losing money as a groundswell of people selling direct is going to take over because that's what's happening. So that's what's making it difficult. So so the thing I want to do with alternative distribution kind of evolving, and comic book newsstand, I have something up there right now, which is sort of like a way to at least see what's available through
What
a
is it,
lot of people.
comicbooknewsstand.com?
Comicbooknewsstand.com. So you can
Okay.
kind of see, it's just like a digital newsstand where, you don't judge too much about what you're seeing other than like the cover, the title, and maybe like the age rating and things like that. So then you could click on each cover and it'll take you to the website of the respective creators involved or the publisher. So utilizing that system with kind of what's already on Alterna is most likely going to be the evolution of what's to come for Alterna, because the people I want to publish don't need a publisher. So I want to publish self-starters, motivated entrepreneurial types. Maybe they need an editor, maybe they need a letterer, maybe they need some graphic design, but they don't need a publisher. And I don't have the keys to the kingdom of distribution for them, which I would advise that they don't go down anyway. So I don't offer them anything like that too. So that's why the evolution of it is, well, what would they need? What do the readers need? And the whole reason I even started Alterna was to try to help people and to try to get great books into the hands of readers, especially independent books.
You do
so
have
that's
social
why
media. You
getting
do have
those
an
books
email
on the
list.
store would help.
Yeah, you do have. So I understand, like, for Alterna distribution to evolve essentially into a retail operation, you can sell 3-5 copies of literally anything because it's going to come with your recommendation, which you're going to see. My 2 cents on this would be you do not want to offer anything for sale that you wouldn't recommend because you'd at least find the good in it and be like, oh, okay, Adam's got this zombie comic and it's called College of the Dead. It looks like it's fun. I looked at it. It looks like it's fun. So I'm going to do an email blast on this and you'll sell whatever you sell. In fact, honestly, Pete, maybe just get the commitment from, say it's me. Get the commitment from
I
me.
couldn't. Yeah, I'd still have to be choosy with what I want to purchase and the amount of it
selective.
because obviously, money's not infinite.
You'd be choosy enough that you could recommend it.
But instead of, let's
What's
say, money towards a print run of a book, it'd be money to play around towards purchasing, this book, that book, this book, whatever, 3 to 5
But I
copies
don't know that you-
instead of doing
I
500 to 1,000 on
if
a
you-
specific one book. And it would be
if you
other
would-
books already made with the creators there. And
Yeah,
those
no.
creators would then all essentially say, hey, go get my book, and it's over here. It's being sold alongside all these other books. And then the customer can save on shipping. They know we do a great job with shipping the books out. And then at the same time, I'm serving a purpose within the comics the way that I started
And you're helping
Alterna
other
to
creators.
be. Yeah.
And you
so
have
we'll
a
still have
retail
some books at
customer
Alterna.
base.
And that's the thing, is that Alterna won't turn into a retail. We'll still be publishing some of our own books. But I'm seeing that this is a need that needs to be filled. This is something that's not happening. It's not happening at the retail level in the direct market. It's not happening largely online. It's something where everyone is kind of like all over the place, which is great. Decentralization is wonderful because it allows you to be mobile and pivot and adapt and have freedom. But at the same time, you still need little pockets of centralization so that it is still at least convenient enough to purchase something as a customer and go to a place to go get it.
If my 2 cents on it is, if you like, it doesn't have to be my books, but for example, my next G.I. Jackrabbits comic. So you see what I'm doing. You see the book is in print. There's no question about it. You don't need to buy anything from me. You just need to have an understanding with me. Like, hey, Adam, I'm going to do a blast on G.I. Jackrabbits. Whatever I can sell, I want to buy back from you at 60% off or 40%, whatever, 50% off, whatever number you want. And is that cool with you? I'll tell you how many I sold, and then you ship me that plus whatever. And then you've made money when you're fulfilling it. And, all done deal. Unless you just don't want to have a shipping issue.
Well, that's the thing. I don't want to have a shipping issue, so I want to have stuff in hand. And I want to see that the quality and the condition is there and the book looks great and everything else. But the thing with that is, like, let's say if I go, okay, well, I want to purchase 3 from you, but if you want to send me 5 or you want to send me 10 or whatever, and you want to do that at a consignment level, then we can do that. So then when they sell, I'll send you money based on that.
Since you're going to be checking.
So there's two type of
checking,
tiers that I could offer to people at that point in time. But this, again, is like maybe a year or so out.
I don't know that you need. Look, if you keep it simple, maybe you can even do it sooner because, frankly, there's a lot of people have a lot of books. Not a lot of people are people that you necessarily want to resell their books, but whoever you think you could resell their books, you like what their content is. Also, that you like who the personality is. Maybe they could speak well of you the same way that you're speaking well of them. Like, let's promote each other. That's one of the things with Comicsgate that I always did was I believed in supporting the people that supported me. And a lot of people did support me, many people, and I always appreciated it. But I kind of saw that as like, well, of course, you would do something like that. So if essentially you're going to wind up because you're pre-selecting them, you're going to be endorsing whatever it is that you're selling through alternative distribution. Saying, hey, I'm Pete.
Not necessarily. Not
Well,
necessarily.
Well, at what level
in the
would you
same
endorse
capacity,
you would just say, like, I think it's pretty cool for what it is.
it's on the site. It looks great. Check it out. That's it.
That's an endorsement.
You know, but it's not necessarily an endorsement in the same capacity in which it's like if I'm publishing a book.
Well, you're not self-publishing it. It's just, hey, here's another guy. He's doing his thing. I think it's pretty good.
We're stocking this on the site. Check it out. You know, if it's interested to you, you know, pick it up. But it's the same kind of thing though that comes with retail in terms of comic shops. And this is something that's obviously it's not happening. It's not happening to the extent that it does. And maybe it'll motivate other people too to do the same. Who knows? But the thing is that, you know, so touching upon things that are going on within the industry, like the obvious things are the books should be better. You know, the companies should be putting out material that is appealing to as many people as possible, but not watering down what it is that they're doing. So that's kind of a fine line to walk. But they're not going to do any of that because that's not what they're being guided by anymore. So what they're being guided by are other things. Other things are priorities that they need to respond to, other narratives that they need to follow. Where we're going to find a change, I think, where we're going to see the solutions take place are at the independent level. Like it is with anything. Everything starts the ground up. You know, if there's a top-down initiative in anything ever, it never goes well.
Because it's not informed.
Anything.
It doesn't know what people want and what's working.
Yeah, exactly. Massive disconnect, right? You know, you get this whole thing of like, that's not what's going on, you know, and they're like, well, it doesn't matter what's going on. We tell them what's going on. There's that motivation, that mindset doesn't work. You know,
you totally get it though, Pete. Honestly, when you talk about the reader has to buy, we all have to work around the reader. It's like, that is exactly what Shooter said. And I worked with him. He actually worked with me a little bit. I was trying to do a comics universe in like 2003. And had created a few characters of my own, hired a bunch of other writers. I asked Jim and I paid him and worked with him for a while to come in to help me develop them into more like a Marvel Universe kind of thing where we kind of fleshed out the characters more together. And prior to that, I knew him in the earlier 90s after he left Valiant. We talked when I was doing Triumphant. He helped us a lot before we launched. But talking to the guy, like, he just conveys a lot of knowledge if you want to listen. And it was always about readers. If you hook the readers, people care. And then if people care, they'll keep buying it. And then if people keep buying it, other people will find out about it. And then you build momentum, and then it grows. So you've got Todd McFarlane up against, you know, Bloodshot #4, you know, whatever goofy Valiant comic they were doing, which Bloodshot did not look anywhere near as dynamic as anything that Todd McFarlane would do on his worst day, but it was still very successful because people were buying into the books and reading them, and they were actually interested in them. So, that's exactly what you say. I think the people whose books that you sell this way and offer this way, hopefully, will be people that will also promote Alterna and just say, hey, yeah, this is a guy who's helping us out. And, you know, you should check out his stuff and take a look at his website and see what he's doing. Look at his YouTube channel.
Just through the virtue of all I could think is when we were being carried by certain stores, and I'm like telling people, yeah, go to their store, you know, because that's where our books are. I can't go to every local comic shop because I know well it's not at every local comic shop.
You're
going to piss off a lot of people. They're going to be like, I took a trip. It's not there.
Mark Millar asked which retailer should he have on his show before he did the stream. And I had responded on it, you know, get Chuck Rosansky from Mile High Comics, who's been retailing comics since the 1970s, before it was a thing, before retailers got discounts and stuff. And Buddy Saunders, who's a guy out of Texas. I don't know if you know his operation. Buddy Saunders, big guy, also in the industry forever. And also Phil Boyle, who is current. He's like that current guy who's dealing with what Marvel and DC are doing. And he did get Phil. But, you know, a lot of people tweeted him. What I've noticed from publishing since the 1980s, going back to the Flintstone and Ninja Turtles days, is that retailers used to have a retail price point that looked a lot more like Alterna back in the 1980s. And that's part of what made the industry healthy, was because there were, 75 cent and $1.25 price points. 65-cent Web of Spider-Man #1s are roughly that price point, where retailers could come in, they could buy whatever they bought, and they didn't care if they didn't sell all the copies. They literally weren't even bothered by that, because they were selling a lot for one thing, and the rest of it was they could take those comics and put them in their basement, and they were happy to have them in their basement because they literally in the 1980s all were appreciating in value, because the price points were so low in the 1980s compared to what people were willing to pay. So a lot of people were buying all the Marvel comics, which is something else that Shooter was pushing for. And
well, that's the other thing. That's the other thing too, right? They expanded into those lines so that if you're a reader, I mean, if you're a publisher, you want your reader to be able to buy everything you do.
It depends on what you're doing, but for Marvel and DC, absolutely. You want them to be able to buy your 4 or 5 new releases a week.
Yes, exactly. But if you're flooding the market because you're more concerned about crushing competitors and you've got the pockets to do it, it's a whole different mindset.
I did the same thing when I used to be a younger guy. Not when I was a kid, but when I was a younger guy. I did the same thing where it's like, oh, well, we sold 10,000 of this. We can sell 15,000 of that. We can make money off of this. But you don't realize, like, look, the worst stuff that I did, including creating female versions of Marvel and DC superheroes, which I did as spoof comics in 1992 and 3. Multiple cover versions.
It's all your fault, Adam. It's all your fault.
Pete, it might be. I'm thinking of reprinting that stuff because I have some Adam Hughes covers that I had recolored. They're freaking gorgeous. But the worst stuff that we did with variant covers and stuff like that, like the big companies picked it up and did stuff like stuff I would never have thought that they would do. But since the serious people left comics, they did. But Pete, tell me what you think about this too, because this actually, I think, is a big part of it. On another Millar tweet or whatever, I was pointing out that when I was publishing, there was not a Diamond Previews. The first version of Diamond Previews came out from a company called Crown Distribution out of Brooklyn, New York, which went out of business, late 80s. But there was no Diamond Previews. I benefited a lot as a publisher to have Diamond Previews and Advanced Comics, those pre-order catalogs that were coming out at the time, because a moderate publisher who was only going to sell like 5,000 copies of something or 3,000 copies of something could put that book out, and the retailer could take pre-orders for it and know that he had people that wanted those books. But at the same time, it facilitated me saying, oh, okay, what's my purchase order? $3,000. I'm getting $3,000 from my distributors. Guess what? I'm going to utilize my studio. I'm going to make sure my costs are less than $3,000, which at that time meant you were not going to produce a great looking comic book because you had these non-returnable orders and you had to be very strict about your numbers. But the point is this: imagine that shops were buying books sight unseen, sometimes didn't even know the creative teams in the 1980s, which is what they were doing. And they were selling those books because there was no pre-order system that allowed a bad book to get through that would still technically be profitable, but would be a blight on the industry. And some of what I did definitely was a blight on the industry, not intentionally. It is what it is. Some of what I did was great, but some of it was a blight on the industry. That because of the pre-order system, and people will take this book, they'll take that variant. But was that a book that was going to stand the test of time for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years? In many cases, no. Those books shouldn't have existed. And that facilitated an independent explosion, a lot of the stuff of which wasn't good. And then retailers didn't have to be as careful. And when the returnable market shifted to a non-returnable market, That also was a major shift, to go to your point from earlier before,
Yeah.
where it was, oh, let's just dump it on the retailer. It's not our problem anymore. Well, in fact, the books that were put out in the 1980s were so saleable that not only didn't the comic stores care if they didn't sell, because they would sell eventually, because of the price point advantage. Sorry, to make that point real quick. The price point advantage was like 65-cent retail comic, 75-cent retail comic could sell for $2 retail as a back issue. The retailer paid 50% off, so they're making multiple times their money. That doesn't exist at a $5 retail. It doesn't exist at a $3 retail. Retailers can't charge just $10 for any random Daredevil back issue. So, aside from that problem of not being able to make the multiples on back issue sales, but the books were so saleable that distributors, and we had about, I think, 10 distributors at the time. Definitely wasn't just Diamond and Capital. Distributors
a lot
would
of regional distributors.
much more regional because but they expanded. Diamond expanded nationally to have these little regional outlets. But
the same kind of thing we went through when we were with Newsstand. We had to ship to like
did you
12
know this,
different.
Pete? You may not have known this because this is like old guy stuff now. Distributors from independents to major publishers would buy extra copies of back issues of new issues to sell them as marked up back issues.
Oh,
That's how
the direct market was built. That's how a lot of comic shops were built. Yeah.
But even before the comic shop, like the distributor would say, okay, we've got pre-orders of 8,000 on G.I. Jackrabbits #1, but we can probably sell it for more, so we'll do 10,000 on that, and we'll hold 10,000 in the warehouse, and then we'll wholesale it at a slightly higher rate to the shops when the prices go up. That's like how much actual demand there was in the shops, not just for independent comics. Ninja Turtles was a big part of that, but not just for independent comics, but even for mainstream comics, distributors would speculate and hold inventory. It was absolutely wild, productive times. But the point of it is like, what do the consumers, the real readers, actually want? Exactly like you said, and being able to satisfy that. There's no way to do it through the shops. The only way the shops help are like what Brian is doing. He can make a little money, maybe recoup some of his editorial cost when he makes a new Lady Death comic. He's not going to make a profit selling in shops to anywhere near what he makes with crowdfunding.
Yeah, well, that's why. Yeah, and that's why I'm talking about a lot of these retailers where if they can't, I mean, most people can look at the wide variety of books and go, that one's crap, that one's pretty good, and that one, I don't know, maybe someone will like it, but I'm not sure about it. Most people could do that. You don't have to be a retailer, you don't have to be even in the business to see what quality looks like.
That's
so
true.
I understand giving a book a chance, and I think the retailers should. But there's a consistency, there's a pattern that's constantly being on display here, and you don't need to go through 5 or 6 or 7 years of it to see it coming out the way it's coming out. Maybe 4 or 5 months, 4 or 5 issues. If the publisher isn't going to do anything about a specific kind of series or a certain creator who's obviously leaning a certain way to do certain things and say certain things, both to customers, which are the retailer's customers as well. If anything, first and foremost, they're the retailer's customer, then they're purchasing the books. If they're not going to do anything about it at the publishing level, the retailer has to do something about it and go, you know what, we're not stocking those books. I'm going to get these other books instead that look good. And if the retailer doesn't know how to tell what looks good and what sounds good and would appeal to the customers that they have coming through their store, again, that retailer needs to stop retailing. And it's turning into a weird situation where comic shops are being treated like charities among everybody, because it's all like, oh, we have to make sure, and we saw this big time for the past couple of years, we have to make, and we're seeing it again, we have to make sure the comic shops all stay afloat, because if the comic shops go under, then where are we going to sell our comics? I look around and I'm like, where the hell am I going to sell I'm going to sell my comics probably more than I ever did before. So it's a very weird mentality. of like, well, how do we make the comic shops money? No, how does the comic shop make us money? How does the comic shop get good
They
books
can't.
to the readers? That should be what's happening here. The comic shops aren't charities that are in the middle that are just trying to like get some books, keep them alive. The comic shop should also be in it, going, how do we make money for ourselves and for the publishers and get good books to the readers? How do we do that too? How do we be an active participant in the comic industry instead of being a passive charity case, waiting for the rest of the industry to just come around and then finally make something good so that we can make money? They can do all kinds of things. They could do community building things. They could do things like I was talking about before with in terms of signings, treating them like they actually matter. But they could also do things like set up a local creator section. They could do things like set up a as seen on crowdfunding and talk to crowdfunding creators and get something in their store to set up those books there as well. They could do all kinds of different things to diversify and grow their product, because a big thing that happened with the comic publishers, the bigger ones, in terms of what they did to push woke stuff, is because of the fact that a lot of the comic retailers did not want to stock a variety of books. So instead of like putting in on the shelf space, we've got all kinds of variety here from independents that are telling all kinds of stories, the publishers that are bigger could go, oh, we're hearing a lot about that this is a need because it's not happening at the comic shop, so we're going to push this in. And then they start looking like weird independent books. So the mainstream all of a sudden is flipped and starts looking like weird independent books that I've always had a tough time selling because it's to a niche audience. And they're the ones that are leading the charge. So if they're the tent pole and they're behaving more like the second, third, fourth string, the bench warmer, well, the whole industry is going to follow suit. And pretty soon you give it enough time, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, and you have that whole effect take place. You don't have to have a business degree. You don't have to have an economics degree. You don't have to run a store. You don't have to run a company. You can see that precedent that's set. I saw it as a publisher. It's self-explanatory. Yeah, the whole thing is self-evident in terms of people look to it. Even as a publisher, I had to stop submissions this year because I keep seeing more and more creators looking, for the first time ever, had to stop submissions and go, that's it. I can't take them anymore, because last year I didn't accept a single one. Because between people wanting...
Let me just do a quick break.
Oh, sure. Go for it. So I'll come back. I'll tell you guys this right now. I've already said it before anyway, but I'll come back and I'll reiterate to Adam. The reason why being the fact that a lot of the creators are looking towards the big two and what's currently out. And they go, that's my benchmark. That's where I got to reach. And if they're giving you a low benchmark and I'm looking for stuff that should be at a higher level, that's where they're going to aim. And so it follows suit like that. And then you get the two-pronged effect of a lot of creators having stars in their eyes and going, this is a stepping stone towards Hollywood. So I'll create a comic. I'll pitch it to the publisher like, well, hey, we'll get this optioned. We'll turn it into a production. And then it'll get to Hollywood. I don't care about Hollywood. I care about the reader. Are you going to impress the producer at Hollywood? Or are you trying to impress the reader? Let's talk about trying to impress the reader. And between more creators, more and more of them, and last year was a tipping point for me, wanting to impress the producer and wanting to create a comic that looked more like it should be at modern Big Two than actually trying to make the best possible story they could make. Maybe they thought they were, but it certainly wasn't my definition of the best possible story that could be made. And that was the catalyst for me going, can't accept submissions anymore. Too many people rushing into it, too many people not taking the time to know their craft, too many people wanting to have a position that if you want to go make a movie, go make a movie. But you want to make a comic, let's make a comic. So I was basically talking about the fact that the Big Two basically set a benchmark in terms of the kind of stuff that makes aspiring creators think this is what gets you published. So I was seeing a lot of that, of these lowered kinds of lowered quality coming through, along with people who were wanting to use comics as a stepping stone towards Hollywood.
Right.
I can't tell you, so many submissions coming in. People trying to impress me by saying, we can get this optioned. It's in the works, talking to so and so to get it adapted to this and that. No mention of impressing the reader. A lot of mention of impressing the producer, and thinking that that's what I want to see. And I'm like, I don't care about any of that. First of all, we're creator owned, so you go do whatever you want to do with it. It doesn't really help me unless that book actually is good and earned that attention. If it's just like a forced entryway using various DEI checklists and whatever else and I can't, again, characters pitching the story. It would be like pitching the story of Batman, saying that a privileged cisgender white male dons a costume to fight crime. It would be like that's how you pitch Batman. Imagine doing that. I'm getting pitches for their stories and characters in that fashion, where I'm like, I don't give a crap who they what. That's the last thing I even want to care about in regards to...
Where they actually mention cis, this or that?
Yes, yeah.
Oh my God.
They mention the sexuality, the race, the gender, or gender fluid of the character. They're a gender fluid character.
Oh my God.
So it's one of those things where, like, that's at the hierarchy of the storytelling. That to them is what is important, because they're being told that that's what's important from other people.
Right.
So I'm seeing that time and again, where the storytelling is not as important. Trying to impress the reader and entertain them, to not subvert their expectations, but to actually exceed expectations. That's not a priority. Every single thing, and I come back with it, and I'm like, I can't keep doing this. I'm seeing hundreds of submissions coming in, and this is just maddening. So I decided, no, I can't accept submissions.
You already
anymore.
know enough people that if you want to do more projects,
exactly,
you could reach out to them and say, hey, let's do some stuff.
But yeah, so I'm seeing that kind of thing happening, and I mean, we're all seeing this sort of thing happening. So there's so many different levels to the system, the industry as a whole, in terms of when people say, well, if you do this one aspect, it'll be fixed. No, you got to fix different things.
Yeah,
because you have multiple leaks in the whole thing.
The idea of just giving creators a gigantic royalty, is not where it's at. And I do think in Millar's interview, he brought out that people do want, retailers, customers do want long or longer runs of books, where they can just follow a character and get that same character on a regular basis, and it's not going to be rebooted and screwed around with. And then, of course, it's just fundamentally good. But that's for the bigger publishers to fool with. It really is, because as indie guys, you can't make promises of doing, I tried. You really can't make a promise of, we're going to have this great book that comes out monthly, and we've got 6 or 7 of them. Like that, it's a pretty big commitment.
Yeah, even if like King Cryptid I was talking about, 4 issues a year, I want to try to get to, within the next 2 years, do 10 to 12 issues a year, do 2 campaigns a year. I can't do that though within the traditional system. There's a reason I'm doing King Cryptid right now, and I didn't do it anything close to it when I was in the traditional system, because I knew doing ongoing in the traditional system. Yeah, by issue 5 it's probably canceled because it's like 300 to 400 sales. So it's you need to have that. Yeah, the utilization there. That's more of that connection. Retailers, it's a cold process.
Is miraculous.
It really is.
Crowdfunding is miraculous, and if there's a way to sell to shops and meet some extra people that wouldn't have found your product otherwise, then that's great. And I think when we're crowdfunding, we should tell people, look, our goal is to create a lower priced version of this for shops so that people aren't surprised. It used to be that people were upset if a crowdfunded book wound up with a lower price point, even as single issues, in shops. So people should always be aware of what they're supporting and what your future plans are. But there's no disputing the power of what Polito is doing successfully, where, he's got his crowdfunder, he's promoting the heck out of it. And he's spent a lot of money on advertising as well, like lots of Facebook advertising, lots of Google advertising, a lot of money spent that he knows works for him. Doesn't necessarily work for everybody, but he does what works for him, and then he builds his audience with the comic shops,
Oh,
and
yeah,
he knows
yeah.
he can't make a living out of the comic shops.
And Polito
Just
is
extra.
also a bit of a different scenario in which he came. It's like comparing like Billy Tucci as well, where they both kind of came on the scene relatively around the same time. Built a lot of attention and success off the back of being in a very healthy market with comic shops, and then they're able to turn into the modern age of, and not everybody could do it, not everybody is doing it, so hats off to them still, because it's difficult.
But you know what, too,
and then turning that into a successful thing on their own as an endeavor. But it's not like Polito came out of nowhere with like Lady Death.
No,
and,
that's true. But
so,
if you look at Lady Death's first campaign, I think he did 50 or 60,000. He didn't break 100, I don't think. So he built that campaign, and then he went and did more promotion. He has a lot of tricks to learn from. Multiple variants. From crazy.
He's great.
Well, one of the things he does is he'll hire an artist to do a cover that has their own following. So if you hire that artist, you pay that fee, your customers buy it, but also they help you promote it with their own social media.
Yeah. You put someone on the creative team who's also bringing value.
Mm-hmm. So
Yeah.
these are things that it's not to be like, oh, I'm going to be the next Lady Death. It's just to learn principles from whatever works. One of the things I used to do is look at Diamond previews and look at sales reports. And occasionally I'll still look at some estimated sales reports. And you can infer a lot of what's working and what's not working right now based on what other people are doing. Inherently, too, one of the things I realized early on in publishing was while some people may be publishing some stuff at a loss, generally it's at least break even, the things that are kind of working and coming out. So you can kind of like learn what's working from other people and see what is appropriate to kind of adapt to what it is that you're doing.
Oh yeah, if anything, I think that's proofs in the pudding, where so many independents have learned from what's happening at the mainstream and go, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do this instead.
You don't want to do that. I mean, you want to, if you're self-publishing, you want to own all your own stuff, control all your own stuff.
Yeah.
Do your crowdfunding, do your social media as much as possible. And like when I make the videos, sometimes, I love making videos. I love seeing, the videos. Some of them are more successful than others. But I love that there's an audience. People want to see them, people view them. And it's great and it's fun. It makes a little bit of money. And, I'll keep doing them. But I make sure that I do them every day, no matter what. And we're all human beings. We have personal issues that come up. But nothing will stop me from at least doing one video a day when I've, scheduled myself to do at least normally 2, and I'll do 2 a day. And that like you work really, really hard, Pete, obviously. That's the other lesson that if we can convey anything to anyone else is expect to work really hard. And if it's what you want, then it's worth it to do the work. Otherwise, why are you doing it?
Yeah.
But you got to do the work.
100%. 100%. So I just think, and I can't believe 2.5 hours. Holy smokes, man! This has been
it's like 15 minutes went by talking to Pete
It's been a very engrossing conversation, Adam. Thank you so much, man.
Thank you for having me.
I usually do an hour, so this is just a great conversation.
It's an honor, my brother.
Very engaging. Obviously, hopefully, our passion here about this subject is coming through to those watching, and thank you guys for watching too. Holy smokes, Spicer wants 3 more hours. I can't do 3 more hours. I got to wrap this
know
up
what's
in
funny
about
is
10 minutes at most.
EVS launched Expendables for Zach, and like when I get live streaming, because I've built this is another reason why I appreciate all the Comicsgate guys particularly, is they got me used to doing it. So like I did 9 hours, I think minimum. I was like the longest running guy on that whole thing. It's just like it gets to be fun. Oh yeah, man, we did 9 hours. Zach didn't even come on the stream. It was just like Ethan always likes to promote Zach, so it was just like we were promoting Zach, and he did his Expendables book, which did really, really well. We helped on the launch, and it was like 9 hours. And I was like, yeah, it's whatever. You just get on there and you go. And it's a lot of fun, and it's all because like YouTube people are really cool too, and they make it fun. The comments are a lot of fun.
Man, oh man, wow, that's incredible.
Yeah, like that was.
Yeah.
We do that time and time again. You know, and other guys I'm sure are streaming a long amount of time too. But you just get in there and you go.
So
a lot of fun.
yeah, so I wanted to, before I got sidetracked by my own thought.
Your own genius.
I wanted to, well, my own appreciation for this conversation and for you in the chat, because holy smokes, a big takeaway that I'm getting from this in terms of solutions that is not being acknowledged enough, I think, in the grander conversation that a lot of others are having, even though it's an important one. And I'm glad that they're putting it into the field here, is that all these changes, all these solutions are individual decisions, individual actions taking place. You can't have these grand sweeping, like the big company will come along and a directive will take place that changes a magic wand, across the entire comic industry, and everything is saved. Everything is fixed. Everything is great again. It's going to take a lot of people, which is what is happening. It's going to take a lot of people doing a lot of work, putting a lot of time and effort, and making things the best that they could possibly make them. It's going to take time. It's three little picks. It's building the house of brick. You may see other people building their house of sticks and straw, and then they're going to have some fun and everything else. But then when that wolf comes along, they're going to be running to your house and going, please let me in.
There's a lot of wolves.
Yeah, and you're going to be toiling away and busting your butt, and sometimes it's going to feel like, wow, man, I don't know, why am I doing this again? I should just be like, look at that, they're having fun over there. Look at them. But you have to have and be true to the vision and maintain the course. It takes a lot of work, takes a lot of effort, and it also takes a big helping hand from those of you out there, the people that are supporting and reading and here for these kinds of things, because we can't do this without you guys. We're gonna probably keep doing it because we're kind of almost insane in a way, but we're gonna be doing it regardless. Many of us.
What's amazing is we actually can do it if they agree. If they're like, yeah, I want to see you guys do this. Like, any one person makes the difference that now we can actually do this.
Exactly. And that's the true thing that is going to actually inspire and create the positive kind of change we want to have. The solutions are inside of all of us. And I'm not going to be corny or cheesy here, although I think we need more corny and cheesiness in the world today. Yep. We're too cynical. But everybody has the power to make an impact. So if people are going out there and they're looking for this person and that person to come and save them or whatever, like I said, we're the cavalry. Save yourselves. You gotta do something. You gotta take that initiative. Take that first step. And there's other people. Then you inspire them, and then they go, "Yeah, look at what they're doing. I want to do that too." And then other people that are like, "I can't do that, but man, that's inspiring. I want to get in on that." And then all of a sudden, before you know it, and we've been seeing this happen over the past couple of years, you've got actually something that's growing in a positive way that's going to make all of that stuff happen. And then give them a reason to not take notice of it. Keep working, keep busting your butt, and make great stuff. Because obviously it's self-evident. If things are better, if the products are better, if the books are better, if there's better creators working on them, then things will be better. It's like, yeah, okay.
And there is one thing to watch out for, and this is in this, but in all things, it's hubris, it's cockiness. Just because something works right, that all of a sudden we think everything's going to work right. Oh, it's just going to keep going great because things are going great at the moment. Hubris is completely self-destructive. It is what got Spider-Man in trouble with his uncle getting killed. But that was the point of that story. It's the point of like many tragic stories in classic literature. And it's something I bring up often in my conversations because like I have to remember to always check myself. If you know Peter's channel, Peter, that Peter has a certain level of pride in what he does. At the same time, he's equally humble and appreciative. And that like little sense of humility and appreciativeness and being humble is going to protect you in ways you can't even imagine. In comics, but like literally in everything. You never want to be it's fine to like joke around about being egotistical, but you don't want to believe your own self-promotion that way.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I have a lot of faith in the fact that we're going down the right direction. It's going to take time, and a lot of people are doing it, and they're paving the path in front of them. They're going down a path that not many have gone down before. So it's going to take time to really chart that course. But when I hear people and they think like, oh, if we just say this and that, it'll fix the big corporation or whatever. No, it's not gonna. It's not. And the more we can understand and accept that and be committed more towards, no, we're going to go to the new world. It's uncharted. It's a little scary. There's a little risk to it, but we can kind of try to make something of it. The other way, it's like Sodom and Gomorrah. Don't turn back. Don't look back. You'll turn to stone.
Yeah, do not. And you can talk to retailers. The reason to talk to retailers is see what's their mindset? What are they thinking about? What do they need to make money? In my case, I gave them stuff where if they gave me $100, they got like $250 or $300 worth of stuff. So for them, they could figure out if they could make their money back and make a profit. That's up to them if they know their market. And some could and some couldn't. And you try to keep it simple. But I agree with you, Pete. There isn't some solution of somebody's going to wave a magic wand, particularly because since the early 1990s, editorial has been completely diminished in comic books. Absurd. Marvel used to have a house style, which actually worked for them. But
you can even see it with some of the creators who are still making something today compared to what they made then. And then all you got to do is go why do they suck now? And then just look at the editor. Who's the editor? You look at the editor back then and you're like, oh, those were top notch. Those were icons in the industry. And you look at the editor today and you're like, who's that?
It's Jim. If anyone wants to see it, at jimshooter.com, he's got his storytelling lecture. And also he talks about, and basically it's just talking about a lecture he was giving in the early 1990s about essence of story, as well as dissecting some of Jack Kirby's work and explaining what an incredible story. Jack Kirby is incredibly dynamic. He's got a lot of action, but was a tremendous storyteller, conveyed a tremendous amount of information in a limited amount of space. And he breaks down page by page and talks about what he did. And this is what Shooter used to do. He was explaining he was trying to teach new people, and he did teach some new people. Frank Miller was one of them. This is what Shooter learned from other people. It's no offense. It's not attacking an artist and telling them you don't want them to be creative. He's just when you see Jack Kirby's work in the 1960s, he had already been drawing for a couple of decades, and he understood all right, I'm going to have this establishing shot. I'm going to show this action. I'm going to show this human drama. And one of the most impressive things with Kirby was being able to read the story without looking at the word balloons. Sure, Stan Lee did some brilliant things in the word balloons, but you could know what the story was by watching Jack tell the story in the art. That is what should... Look, anyone could do comics any way they want to do. No one has to follow any rules. But if you want to know what the greats were really doing, film directors, they were giving you the story with how they set up the storytelling and the illustrations and the graphic design and the composition and the art and the panels. And it was something they could do. Kirby could do this, and they could do multiple pages a day because these were almost templates to him in terms of the character interaction, the points he wanted to get across in the story when he was drawing the backgrounds and the settings he was portraying in the backgrounds. I promise you, I'm studying this stuff intently, and I've never appreciated the work before as much as I'm appreciating it now, because I'm understanding oh my God, and I only got into this because of Shooter's website, as well as a couple of lectures he gave and a couple of comic conventions that I saw. This is even after me learning things from him, speaking to him one-on-one when we did a little bit of work together. But all of that comes from not because Shooter is God or anything, or he's such a great storyteller even, just because this is knowledge that came from years past of other people from decades past. It's all there for the taking for us to be. The thing too is, if you can really tell a story with just artwork, and then the lettering and the dialogue is additional to that, you're going to resonate with that reader so much. It's going to be so meaningful to that person.
Yeah.
They're going to love what you're doing. So as a creator, it's incredibly educational. But look at the
visual
art.
storytelling first and foremost.
But
So important.
That's just a skill set. It's like,
It's
I'm
just-
going to go to a dentist. Like, they're going to do work on my teeth. Like, I want them to have done dental work before, not like me be the first guy. So it's like, okay, but
You
this
don't
is a
want that
skill
person to go,
I
I'm
don't wanna
winging
be the
it
first-
today.
There's also another great book, apparently. You heard this in the same audiobook, Pete. The 5 C's of cinematography that used to get passed around Marvel. I have to take a look at that too. That is another thing for like storytelling and layout. But the thing of it is like all of that, like people will read your stuff and they'll love it and they won't even know why they love it. It's not the idea of the character. It's not even just the splash page or the cover. Just one other quick thing, like Kirby, his covers were not only dynamic, but all the characters, in many cases, were using their special power on the cover. So you understood what the Human Torch did, what the Thing did, what the Mr. Fantastic did, how he could stretch. Like their actions were all on the cover. But not just that, the plot of the story of that issue was represented on the cover. So it's like, oh, well, I want this. I leave a couple of Fantastic Four comics from the 60s laying around on my desk, actually near where I do the exercise bike. And there's so much energy in there. It's so inspirational. It's just so exciting to be around Jack Kirby's work. And it's great to appreciate Jack Kirby, but there's a lot to learn from that, even if you're not, like I'm not an artist, even if you're not an artist. Like, just to surround yourself with that kind of great material and understanding for this is what we can convey in our work, but we have to be proactive about it. If I show examples and tell people what I want, like tell an artist what I want, most artists can actually do this. But if I don't tell them what I want, they're not going to do it. They're going to be just like some character standing next to a building, doing nothing, like without even showing their superpower. Well, it's not the fault of the artist. It's true that pinup cover is the norm now, and it isn't a good thing, but it's an opportunity to do better work and have people want to support what we're doing.
Yeah,
anyway,
it should
Pete,
hint at
I
the
appreciate
storytelling, and yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no problem, man. Thank you for
imagine the
coming
plot
here
is on the
today.
cover. Freaking Kirby,
That's why
what a
that's what
genius.
we do at Alterna, and when we don't do that, it still has something to do actually with the interior of the story. So even if it is still like a pin-up shot, it still has to do with something iconic referencing the story and teasing what's going to be inside.
It helps a lot. But what's also cool is the more information you can convey, because there is a story on the cover. If there actually is an action shot of the story on the cover where your characters are showing what they can do, you can see their powers. In a split second, any potential buyer can see that image and get so much information that they've now become engaged in your story, and that's a customer. It's going to sell more books. The reason they did this was not just because Jack Kirby loved comics. It was because Martin Goodman made money when those comics jumped off the shelves. They were non-returnable. They were, returnable at the time. Those books had to jump off the shelves. They had to be competitive. So those people actually thought about that when they were making the stuff. And a lot of us, me included, got lazy when we were selling them to a non-returnable direct market. And now we have this mess. Damn it, Peter. We're going to fix it. No problem.
One step at a time, one comic at a time.
One Alterna at a time. Everybody support Alterna. And subscribe to my channel. AdamPostSpeaks.com or WorkShutdown.com.
I got Adam's link in the description so you guys can go check that out. We're going to wrap up the show here. 2 hours, 50 minutes. Holy smokes. Adam, thank you so much for your time. This conversation was incredible. Everybody in the chat, thank you guys for being here. Your questions and comments were appreciated. Always appreciated. Thank you guys so much. And other than that, man, I'll be back tomorrow night on here at 9 o'clock Eastern with Mandy Summers. We'll be having a conversation as well. And I hope you guys don't miss it. Other than that, also, Adam, where can they find you one more time?
Oh, AdamPostSpeaks.com. They'll take you to my YouTube, which is pretty much my focus right now. More comics to come soon, but for right now, it's YouTube.
There you go. All right, everybody, take it easy. Have a wonderful
Tell Mandy
night.
I said hi, too.
I will. Have a wonderful night and an even better tomorrow. See you guys. And, yeah, take care, everybody. See you tomorrow.